Chapter 2032. In a mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, the purple divine dragon formed by the hidden dragon blessing looked at the dragon head scepter in its claw with a hint of sadness in its eyes. Then, it threw the dragon head scepter to Yuhauran, who was absorbing the milky white energy. My young friend, take this scepter of fortune as an apology from Mu Fengying for offending you. Fortunately, Yuhauran had reserved some energy to communicate with Thaling and the Blood Void Beast. Therefore, when he saw the dragon head scepter thrown to him by the hidden dragon blessing, he quickly reached out to catch it. Seeing Yuhauran reach out to catch the dragon head scepter, the hidden dragon blessing continued with a complicated expression. My young friend, with the scepter of fortune and the dragon scale I gave you before, you can completely control purification. You don't have to worry about them having any disloyalty. As for Mu Fengying, I'll bring him back to the virtual zone for the time being. After he's completely worn away his ambitions and thoughts that he shouldn't have, I'll let him assist you in your great cause of destroying the world. After quickly putting away the dragon head scepter, Yuhauran hurriedly cupped his fists and thanked it. Thank you for your care, Senior. My young friend, goodbye. After nodding, the purple divine dragon formed by the hidden dragon blessing stretched out its claw and cut open the void in front of it. It quickly disappeared into the void of the mountain range with Mu Fengying. Boom! Just as the void that the purple divine dragon had cut open was slowly closing, a deafening roar suddenly sounded in the void of the mountain range. Accompanied by the deafening roar, a black that looked like an ant flew out of the chessboard floating in the void of the mountain range. The moment the black dot left the horizontal board, its body began to grow abruptly. Soon, it became a giant spirit-devouring ant that was more than 100 meters tall. However, the giant spirit-devouring ant, which was originally majestic, was now in a very sorry state. 2 of its strong legs had been forcibly broken, and dozens of wounds of varying depths had appeared on its shining golden body. At the same time, on the silver chessboard, Scorching Sun, Inu, and Fanqing's faces were as pale as paper. Their auras had fallen to the martial god level. In other words, the spirits of 3 extinguishers and the King of Hell were both injured and defeated. Thaling attack. Since it was a tie, perhaps only the giant spirit-devouring ant knew whether the King of Hell, who had a personal grudge against it, would leave. Yuhauran, who had always been taking advantage of the situation, immediately ordered Thaling to attack the heavily injured King of Hell. Sword! After hearing Yuhauran's order, Thaling did not hesitate and shouted towards the depths of the mountain range. Accompanied by Thaling's roar, a sword that exuded a strong bloody aura, a sharp sword aura, a strong aura of grievance, and a strong murderous aura quickly appeared in his hand. Kill immortal and destroy soul. Holding the square sword tightly in his hand, Thaling immediately performed a swordsmanship of the peak supreme level. The bloody sword aura created by the swordsmanship crossed the barrier of time and space and directly chopped at the giant spirit-devouring ant's hard skull. Damn it! The giant spirit-devouring ant had been severely injured by the rules of destruction contained in the destroyer chessboard. Its strength had fallen to the peak of the immortal realm. Sensing that the sword aura created by Supreme Violet Spirit's swordsmanship had reached the middle stage of the immortal realm, the giant spirit-devouring ant could not help cursing. It immediately used the 2 purple antennae on its head to resist the sword aura that contained bloody aura, murderous aura, grievance, and murderous aura. Puff! Puff! With the sound of 2 objects being cut off, the 2 antennae on the giant spirit-devouring ant's head were easily cut off by the sword aura. Then, the sword aura, which had not lost much power, heavily chopped at the giant spirit-devouring ant's hard skull. Boom! Accompanied by a dull roar, a wound about 2 meters long was directly cut on the skull of the giant spirit-devouring ant, and a brown gemstone-like stone was exposed. A chaos spirit stone that contains the origin of the rules of destruction. When they saw the brown stone in the head of the giant spirit-devouring ant, whether it was the tower spirit, blood void beast, spirits of three annihilation, or the peak ninth grade sovereign and half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void, they all shouted out the origin of the brown stone with greed in their eyes. When the giant spirit devouring ant saw that its most important and fatal secret was exposed in front of everyone, a trace of panic appeared in its eyes. It opened its mouth and spat out a gray gas that enveloped its skull and chaos spirit stone. After that, it turned around and fled in the direction of the central region. Don't even think about escaping. Seeing the giant spirit devouring ant turn around and flee, spirits of three annihilation quickly swallowed a ninth grade level 1 divine pill and hurriedly drove the destroyer chessboard to chase after it. At the same time, more than 40 half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void quickly condensed the projections of 90% of their strength and sped up toward the central region of the Tianxian continent. Although Thowling and Blood Void Beast also wanted to seize the opportunity to chase after the giant spirit devouring ant and fight for the Chaos Spirit Stone that could help them reach the half-tribulation immortal realm easily. When they saw Yu Haoran receiving the God Tribulation Thunder punishment and thought of the tribulation mentioned by the great sage, Heaven's Equal, Sun Wukong, they finally suppressed their greed and could not help but sigh. However, neither Yu Haoran, who was the main body, nor Thowling, who was the device spirit of the victor, discovered the first doppelganger that had quietly left the victor. The Chaos Spirit Stone was a kind of energy crystal that was of a higher grade than spirit stones and innate crystals. In the Chaos Spirit Stone, there was not only a huge amount of pure Chaos Spirit Chi, but also a trace of the origin of the rules of destruction. If one could use the Chaos Spirit Stone to cultivate, a supreme existence who had just reached the supreme realm would be able to reach the peak of the third tribulation immortal realm in 3 years at most. If a peak of the third tribulation immortal realm expert used the Chaos Spirit Stone, he would also be able to reach the peak of the third tribulation immortal realm in half a month and become the strongest expert before the heaven and earth were destroyed. This was also the reason why the half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void were willing to risk offending the rules of heaven for the third time and continue to condense their projections to descend upon the Tianxian continent. Sigh. Yu Haoran also could not help but sigh after the detailed records of the Chaos Spirit Stone flashed through his mind. In fact, he did want to snatch the Chaos Spirit Stone that could help him reach the peak of the third tribulation immortal realm in a short period of time. However, the reality that he lacked the help of a peak of the third tribulation immortal realm expert made him not qualified to participate in the fight for the Chaos Spirit Stone. Chapter 2033. In the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located, as the half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void and Tianxian continent went after the giant spirit devouring ants with the chaos spirit stones, the mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located fell into silence. Yu Haoran, who forcibly dispelled his greed for the chaos spirit stones, knew that there wouldn't be any danger in a short period of time. So he continued to absorb and devour the milky white energy rewarded by the God Tribulation Thunder penalty to improve his cultivation and strength. In this state of concentration, it only took him less than 10 minutes to successfully raise his cultivation base to the limit of the complete 10th grade martial God realm. By absorbing and devouring the chaotic energy from the 8th God Tribulation Thunder penalty, as well as the power of the rules of destruction, the mystery of the law of life and death that was about to advance to the next level allowed him to directly break through to the supreme realm. However, the experience of breaking through to the martial god, Emperor Wu, martial venerable, and the martial saint realm made him deeply understand how important it was to accumulate before breaking through to the next level. Therefore, after forcibly suppressing the urge to break through to the supreme realm, Yu Haoran began to use the milky white energy to break through to the supreme realm. 10 minutes later, the bottleneck of the physical body grade that had been raised to the pinnacle showed signs of loosening. Without any hesitation, he took out a drop of myriad drug milk that he extorted from the ancient demon clan and then combined it with the milky white energy rewarded by the God Tribulation Thunder penalty to break through to the supreme realm. Boom! 2 minutes later, as a dull thunder sounded from Yu Howren's body, a powerful aura that could shatter the void barrier immediately emerged from his body. However, the moment the powerful aura emerged, Yu Howren quickly withdrew it. Other than the blood void beast and the others who were guarding their positions, who vaguely sensed the aura of his breakthrough, the master of Buddhism, who continued to hide 30,000 meters away from the mountain, and the peak ninth-grade martial artists in the endless void didn't notice anything unusual. Yu Howren used the milky white energy he absorbed and devoured to increase the divine power in his dantian after successfully breaking through the supreme martial artist realm and advancing to the early first-grade supreme martial artist realm. In less than 10 minutes, with the help of the milky white energy and myriad drug milk, Yang Kai's dantian successfully broke through the bottleneck and advanced to the venerable realm. Just like the breakthrough of the physical body, the powerful aura formed by the breakthrough of divine power was forcefully suppressed and withdrawn by Yu Howren before it could truly emerge. Other than the blood void beast, Lu Yuan, and the others who were familiar with his Thaling technique and vaguely aware that his divine power had reached the supreme being realm, they did not notice anything else. After his divine power had advanced to the early first stage of the supreme martial artist realm, he absorbed and devoured the milky white energy rewarded by the God's tribulation lightning and used it all to increase the grade of his soul power. Similarly, it took him less than 10 minutes to successfully advance to the supreme martial artist realm. After his soul power had advanced to the early first stage of the supreme martial artist realm, Yu Howren divided half of his energy to continue absorbing and devouring the milky white energy to increase the grade of his physical body, divine power, and soul power. The other half of his energy was to rely on the huge amount of information inherited from the Destiny Stone Tablet, the inherited memories of the 12 ancient witches, to break through to the supreme martial artist realm. Breaking through to the supreme martial artist realm not only required the power of law to advance, but also rich experience to broaden one's horizons. Luckily, Yu Howren had inherited the memories of the Destiny Stone Tablet, the memories of the ancient 12 ancestral shamans, and the rich experiences of his previous life. All of these made Yu Howren's experience not any less than those half-tribulation immortal realm experts. Therefore, when his physical body, divine power, and soul power had advanced to the peak of the second-grade martial artist realm, his mental state, which was the most difficult to break through, had also successfully broken through to the supreme martial artist realm. At this time, almost 2 hours had passed since the God's tribulation lightning. The lightning pool that was originally big enough to cover the entire mountain range had shrunk by 2/3, leaving only the size of a primeval forest. According to the size of the remaining lightning pool and the speed at which he was absorbing and devouring the milky white energy, Yu Howren knew that the reward of the God's tribulation lightning would disappear completely in at most 20 minutes. He had passed the God's tribulation lightning safely this time. However, thinking back to the time when he had successfully comprehended the power of the law of space by the Green Lake in the Green Lake mountain range, a strange feeling suddenly emerged in his heart. If he returned to the 100 Chi gate of his martial Tao, he would have an unexpected gain. Yu Howren continued to absorb and devour the milky white energy while recalling the whole process of breaking through to the martial god realm. He didn't have the strange feeling of gain, which made him feel slightly disappointed. However, when he thought of the 9 thunder tribulations and the endless rewards of the God's tribulation lightning to completely transform his cultivation and strength, the disappointment disappeared in an instant. As Yu Howren absorbed and devoured the milky white energy again without any distractions, the area of the lightning pool in the void above the mountain range shrunk continuously. The Thaling, blood void beast, and the others who had been vigilant of their surroundings gradually relaxed their vigilance, and the area of control of the divine telekinesis cloth also shrunk continuously. Therefore, no one noticed that the clouds in the void above the mountain range gradually became moist, and no one noticed that the dense forests and mountains in the southern region were filled with a lot of mist. Of course, nothing was absolute. The master of Buddhism, who was hiding in the void about 30,000 meters away from the mountain range, had already noticed the subtle changes in the southern region in advance. Originally, the master of Buddhism, who was only a third-grade sovereign, had already lost the chance to kill Yuhaoran and seize the destiny of the Destiny Stone Tablet and the divine sea-suppressing pearl from the Destiny Child, as well as the Destiny Stone Tablet and the divine sea-suppressing pearl, as the master of Buddhism was only a third-grade sovereign. The reason why Yuhaoran did not leave immediately was that the great sage, heaven's equal, Sun Wukong, seemed to be unintentional. However, he was actually kindly reminding Yuhaoran that the calamity was not really over. The master of Buddhism knew Sun Wukong, the great sage, heaven's equal, better than most people. This was because when Sun Wukong was in the late ancient era, when he was troubled by his inability to break through to the supreme realm, he had converted to Buddhism for a long period of time. He had also been conferred the title of the Fighting Immortal Buddha by Sun Wukong. Sun Wukong knew that Sun Wukong was a man who never lied. Since he said that Yuhaoran's tribulation wasn't over yet, there would definitely be another tribulation before the end of the God's tribulation. The great sage, heaven's equal, was at the peak of the second tribulation in mortal realm, so the calamity he took seriously was no less dangerous than a half-tribulation immortal realm expert. Chapter 2034. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, fog, other than the monsters and beasts of the water element. I'm afraid only the powerful monsters of the endless sea area can form so much fog in such a short period of time. Seeing more and more fog emerging from the dense forests and mountains of the southern region, the knowledgeable master of Buddha, Wei, quickly guessed the reason and origin of the fog. The divine beasts of the sea area, who rarely intervene in the disputes of the continent, must be worried that the immeasurable calamity will also bring about the extinction of the sea area. Then, their purpose of taking the risk to appear in the southern region this time should be the same as the experts in the endless void. They intend to kill Yuhaoran and transfer the destiny of the Destiny's Child, so that they can obtain the hope of continuing the inheritance of the entire race. Thinking of this, the master of Buddha Wei looked through the void barrier at Yuhaoran, who was sitting cross-legged on the peak, and his eyes revealed a hint of pride as he muttered to himself. Since the sea area has never been affected by the destruction of the ancient, middle, and near ancient times, the strength that they have accumulated over countless years has probably reached a terrifying level. Faced with the sneak attack of countless experts in the sea area, Yuhaoran will definitely die. When less than 1% of the thunder pool in the void of the mountain range was left, Thaling, who knew that the divine tribulation thunder punishment was about to end, heaved a sigh of relief. He then began to call the blood void beast, Lu Yuan, and the others to remove the formation that had consumed almost all the savings of the prince's mansion. However, at this moment, the sword without trace's unintentional words immediately alerted him. It's not raining today. Why is there so much fog in the mountain range? Thaling quickly scanned the entire mountain range with his divine thought and discovered that there were as many as 99 spots of fog in the mountain range. His expression changed drastically as he sped up toward Yuhaoran and shouted loudly to the blood void beast and the others. Everyone, return to your positions and get ready for battle. Just as the pagoda spirit finished its warning, the mist in 99 locations in the mountain range suddenly began to churn. As the mist churned, one after another, demonic beasts at the Supreme Being realm charged out from the mist. Then, all of them charged towards Yuhaoran with murderous intent. Damn it! This is a water-type demonic beast from the sea. When Thaling saw the 99 huge demon beasts rushing out from the mist, and all of them had reached the level of Supreme, he pointed out the origin of these demon beasts in exasperation, and finally understood the calamity mentioned by the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Wukong. Die! Although Thaling's carelessness had caused him to be unable to lend a hand in time, the life-stealing spirit rat, who could control the fate of all living beings and had also reached the supremacy stage, had already sensed the invasion of the sea monsters in advance. The reason why Yuhauran didn't inform Thaling in advance was mainly because he didn't want to alarm the 9 terrifying sea monsters hidden in different locations in the southern mountain range. He didn't want to ruin his secret retreat plan. Seeing that Thaling's unexpected detection had caused the supreme being sea monsters hidden in the mountains to attack in advance, Yuhauran could only give up the remaining milky white energy to counterattack. The Yuan massacre sword that instantly appeared in his hand directly slashed at a tiger-head shark whose fate could be controlled by the life-stealing spirit rat. Puff! As the blood-red sword Qi, slashed out by the Yuan massacre sword, directly killed the divine soul of the tiger-head shark, Yuhauran quickly appeared beside Thaling using the space law abstruse martial technique of instant teleportation. Then, he ordered the blood void beast and the others who were about to use their prearranged means to kill the 98 sea monsters. Everyone, listen up. Return to the prince's mansion immediately. Yuhauran, with the means we've arranged in advance, we can completely kill these supreme being sea monsters. There's no need to temporarily avoid them at all. Seeing that Yuhauran, who had just finished the divine tribulation thunder punishment, was planning to evacuate the prince's mansion with everyone, Thaling reminded him in confusion. Thaling, these supreme being sea monsters are just pawns used to delay our escape from the mountains. The real danger comes from the terrifying experts hidden in different parts of the southern region. As soon as Yuhauran finished his explanation, the aura of 9 terrifying experts erupted in succession from the dense forests and mountains in different parts of the mountains. After sensing the terrifying aura that was not inferior to that of the ferocious beast Danglong, Thaling did not continue to hesitate. He immediately mobilized the divine senses of a peak 9th grade supreme being, intending to transfer the prince's mansion into the body of the victor. Purple spirit, wait a moment. However, just as the divine senses enveloped the prince's mansion and were about to forcibly transfer it into the body of the victor, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in the ears of Thaling and Yuhauran. Accompanied by the familiar voice, a white-haired old man in a green robe with a kind smile instantly appeared in front of Thaling and Yuhauran at a speed that transcended time and space. Old friend. Thaling's face revealed a look of surprise as he cried out involuntarily. Senior Su? Yuhauran's eyes revealed a trace of confusion as he said. This was because the old man in green robe who suddenly appeared in front of him was the knowledgeable Grandmaster Su Hongwan, who he had met when he first entered Xinyang City after his rebirth. However, at that time, Su Hongwan's cultivation was only at the peak of the 9th grade martial saint realm. Now, he could not see through his true cultivation. Purple spirit, since the ancient continent was destroyed, you and I have not seen each other for hundreds of millions of years. Looking at Thaling's face that revealed a look of surprise, the old man in green robe sighed with a complicated expression. That's right. After retracting the surprised smile on his face, Thaling also nodded with a complicated expression and said, However, I have seen one of your incarnations traveling the continent in Xinyang City and the hidden dragon fortress of the central domain. Incarnation. The omniscient Su Hongwan that he met and the old man in green robe who dared to interfere in the hidden dragon ranking battle were actually incarnations of this mysterious old man in front of him. This made Yuhauran feel extremely shocked and at the same time extremely interested in the true origin of this mysterious old man in front of him. Alas, hearing Thaling mention the incarnation that traveled the continent, the old man in green robe could not help but sigh softly and said in a somewhat unhappy tone, My incarnation was inexplicably killed some time ago. Although he used a special secret method to send back some of the more important information, he lost a lot of information about his travels in the continent. Not only did he not have the slightest anger when his incarnation was destroyed, he only felt regret because he could not learn about his travels. Yuhauran was quite surprised by the nature of the old man in green robe in front of him. After complaining unhappily, the old man in green robe looked at Yuhauran and greeted him with a satisfied and kind smile on his face. Chapter 2035. In a mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. When the old man in green was talking about the experience of the incarnation, he had said that the moment the incarnation was killed, he had used a special secret method to transmit some important information. In Yu Howren's opinion, the important information transmitted by the incarnation when it was killed might have some important information about him. For example, the identity of the son of destiny who could start and end the infinite calamity. For example, the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Destiny Calamity Spiritual Rat that could control the fate of all living things. Therefore, in the face of the old man in green's kind greeting, Yu Howren was not surprised at all. Junior Yu Howren greets Senior. The attitude of returning the greeting did not have the kind of heartfelt joy, nor did he deliberately keep a distance. It was as if he was facing an ordinary person who only nodded at him. In this regard, although the old man in green's expression did not change at all, a hint of anxiety flashed in his eyes. This showed that he was still very concerned about Yu Howren's opinion and attitude towards him. Therefore, with a wave of his sleeve, he directly killed the remaining 73 supreme sea monsters in the mountain range. After preventing these monsters from disturbing their conversation, the old man in green explained with a smile. Young friend Yu, although Su Hongwan is only an incarnation of this old man, this incarnation was refined by using a trace of my own mind and 1% of my divine power and soul power. Basically, it could be considered as me. Yu Howren's gaze swept across the 73C region, supreme demonic beasts that were easily killed by the green-clothed old man and the blood fog that was floating in the air. Yu Howren's heart was immediately filled with shock, and he didn't pay attention to the green-clothed old man's deliberate explanation. This was because he did not expect the old man in green strength to be so terrifying, nor did he realize that the supreme realm, which was known as a supreme existence, was so weak. This also caused the joy that he had felt after reaching the complete 10th grade martial god realm with great difficulty to be instantly replaced by endless frustration and disappointment. In the face of Yu Howren's lack of response, the old man in green shrugged helplessly and looked directly at Thowling for help. I got it. Knowing that his old friend wanted him to eliminate Yu Howren's misunderstanding of him, Thowling did not hesitate to nod and agree to the old man's request. At the same time, he used his divine thought to forcibly transmit the old man's origin and temperament into Yu Howren's sea of consciousness. Yu Howren gradually calmed down from his shock as he forcibly inputted the condensed information. Then, he began to read the contents of the condensed information. When the world was first created, apart from the 7 Khanate supreme treasures and tens of thousands of Khanate spirit treasures, there was also an unhatched egg. As they were all creatures born from chaos, whether it was the Bell of Chaos, the Space-Time Victor, the Hautian Seal, or the Void Mirror, they all took great care of this unhatched egg. Not only did they protect it at all times, but they also specially built a cave residence suitable for it to cultivate and hatch. However, as it was born from chaos, the creature in the egg absorbed too much chaos spiritual chi. Without the nourishment of chaos spiritual chi, the creature in the egg grew very slowly. It was not until 1,000,000 years after the Great War of Artifacts that the creature in the egg finally hatched and became the first living creature on the ancient continent. It was a green sea turtle that had reached the first tribulation immortal realm as soon as it was born. The green sea turtle was the true body of the old man in green robes in front of him. In the Great War of Artifacts, the Bell of Chaos and the Space-Time Victor had a slight advantage. Therefore, before the blue dragon sea turtle hatched, the egg had always been with the Space-Time Victor's vessel spirit. Therefore, the previous vessel spirit of the Thowling not only witnessed the process of the green sea turtle hatching, but also guided its cultivation and survival. The relationship between the two was like that of a teacher and a friend. However, as the chaos spiritual chi guided the entire process of the green sea turtle hatching, it had to rely on the chaos spiritual chi to break through its realm and strength in the future. After the Great War of Artifacts, there was not much chaos spiritual chi left in the entire ancient continent. Helpless, the green sea turtle could only temporarily part with the vessel spirit of the space-time victor and go to the sea area with the chaos spiritual chi. This was also an important reason why the green sea turtle was not well known. Moreover, although the green sea turtle was the first living creature on the ancient continent, its temperament and habits were no different from ordinary turtles. It liked to sleep and was unwilling to participate in all the disputes in the world. This was one of the important reasons why it rarely contacted the vessel spirits of the Thaling and the Hautian seal. However, the previous vessel spirit had taught it some survival skills, letting it know that if it wanted to live peacefully, it must always be aware of the changes in the world. Therefore, since the ancient times, he began to condense many incarnations. While he traveled around to increase his knowledge, he also took the opportunity to understand the changes in the world. This was also the fundamental reason why he was so knowledgeable, all-knowing, and all-knowing. After reading the information condensed by the Thaling, the trace of vigilance in his heart towards the old man in green robes completely disappeared. Yu Haoran cupped his hands and bowed again. Junior Yu Haoran greets Senior. Seeing that Yu Haoran's misunderstanding had finally been resolved, the old man in green robes let out a long sigh of relief and hurriedly smiled. Little friend, you don't have to be so polite. Then, he took the initiative to introduce himself with a smile. Before this old man fled to the sea area in ancient times, the previous vessel spirit of the space-time, Victor, once gave me the name Su Hanwen. Little friend, if you don't mind, you can call this old man by my name. This junior dares not. Although the green-robed old man's attitude was very modest and gentle, Yu Haoran didn't dare to call him by his name in the face of his terrifying strength that could easily kill 73 Supreme Sea Region's demonic beasts. In the future, this junior will call you Senior Su. Okay, if Yu Haoran called him by his name, Su Hanwen would not be angry, but he would definitely feel a little uncomfortable in his heart and would look down on him because of this. Therefore, in the face of Yu Haoran's polite and sensible attitude, Su Hanwen was quite satisfied and gratified. Senior Su, now this junior is facing the encirclement of countless experts in the sea area. The situation is very dangerous, so I would like to ask you a question. Without putting down his hands, Yu Haoran asked solemnly, Little friend you don't have to be so polite. If you have any questions, just ask. Su Hanwen smiled and waved his hand. Chapter 2036. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, according to the information about the cyan turtle that Thaling had gathered with his soul consciousness, the moment he hatched, his cultivation base had reached the early stage of one tribulation immortal realm. So, what realm would Su Hanwen's cultivation base reach after cultivating for a long time in the Ancient Era, the Middle Era, and the Near Ancient Era? Would he have the strength to resist the 9 terrifying experts of the sea area? This was the question that Yu Haoran wanted to know the most because it would decide whether he would be forced to leave or fight back. When the ancient continent was destroyed, my cultivation base reached the peak of one tribulation immortal realm. Facing Yu Haoran's question, Su Hanwen didn't hide anything. Instead, he explained his cultivation base in detail. When the ancient continent was destroyed, my cultivation base reached the early stage of 2 tribulation immortal realm. When the ancient continent was destroyed, my cultivation base reached the peak of 2 tribulation immortal realm. 1,000,000 years ago, with the help of the last chaotic spiritual chi in the sea area, I successfully reached the early stage of 3 tribulation immortal realm. So you've reached the early stage of 3 tribulation immortal realm. After hearing about his old friend's cultivation base, Thaling felt happy for him from the bottom of his heart. At the same time, he was confident that he would be able to resist the siege of the terrifying experts of the sea area. Senior Su, how many terrifying experts of the sea area can you deal with at the same time with your current strength? Yu Haoran, who was also happy, pointed at the 9 terrifying experts of the sea area who had stopped at the edge of the mountain range and asked, Among the 9 terrifying demonic beasts, 2 of them have reached the peak of the second tribulation immortal realm. 3 have reached the high phase of the second tribulation immortal realm. 2 have reached the middle phase of the second tribulation immortal realm. And 2 have reached the early phase of the second tribulation immortal realm. Su Hanwen turned around and looked at the boundless mist at the edge of the mountain range, as well as the 9 terrifying experts of the sea hidden in the mist. After introducing their cultivation in detail, Su Hanwen said with a serious expression, "Due to the lack of sufficient chaos spiritual energy for cultivation, I haven't completely consolidated my cultivation base after my breakthrough. At most, I can only deal with the 7 strongest sea monsters. Senior Su, actually before I chose to break through to the martial god realm, I've already considered the invasion of half-tribulation immortal realm experts. Then, I've prepared a method to deal with 2 or 3 of them." In contrast to Su Hanwen's worry, Yu Haoran said with a confident smile after letting out a long sigh of relief, "Therefore, Senior Su, you only need to deal with the 7 most powerful demonic beasts while ensuring your own safety. As for the remaining 2 early second tribulation immortal realm demonic beasts, leave them to us." Although Yu Haoran was confident that he could deal with the 2 early stage second tribulation immortal realm sea monsters, Su Hanwen, who knew the strength of a half-tribulation immortal realm expert better, looked at his old friend, Purple Spirit, who he was more willing to trust. If Yu Haoran takes action personally, the method we've prepared in advance can deal with at least 3 early second tribulation immortal realm experts. Fowling knew that his old friend was asking for confirmation. He lowered his head and looked into the depths of the mountain range. Then, he said with strong confidence, "In that case, let's do as young friend Yu says." After receiving Fowling's confident reply, Su Hanwen took out a willow twig and instantly appeared in front of the boundless mist at the edge of the mountain range. Then, with a gentle swing of the willow twig, the mist turned into a lake and then into a sea. Then, Su Hanwen, who had reverted to his true form of a sea turtle, dashed into the sea. In less than 3 seconds, an angry roar came from the sea. "Sea turtle, you damned traitor! How dare you help others deal with your own kind in the sea?" Su Hanwen didn't refute the roar of the terrifying sea expert. Instead, he mobilized all his strength to increase the strength and speed of his attack. "Blood Void Beast, guard the east of the mountain range. Wield the immortal sword." When Su Hanwen reverted to his true form and dashed into the sea, Fowling summoned his true form of the space-time Victor and ordered the Blood Void Beast, who was hiding in the prince's mansion, in advance. "Yes, sir." The Blood Void Beast, who had dashed out of the prince's mansion, came to a valley in the east of the mountain range. Then, it took out an upper level 1 immortal vein and inserted it into a sword that emitted a murderous aura. Then, it sat cross-legged beside the sword. "Yusiki, guard the west of the mountain range. Wield the immortal sword." After dashing out of the prince's mansion, Yusiki nodded to Yu Haoran and Fowling. Then, she dashed into a deep pit in the west of the mountain range, which was the original location of the 100 Chi Gate. Then, she took out an upper level 1 immortal vein and inserted it into a sword that emitted a ruthless aura. Then, she sat cross-legged beside the sword. "Long-armed ape, guard the south of the mountain range. Wield the immortal sword." "Yes, sir." After leaving the space-time Victor, the long-armed ape instantly dashed into a dense forest in the south of the mountain range. It also inserted an upper level 1 immortal vein into a sword that emitted a clear aura. Then, it sat cross-legged beside the sword. "Yu Haoran, report your current true realm and strength." Fowling turned to look at Yu Haoran and asked solemnly, "My physical body, divine power, and soul power have all reached the peak of 5th grade supreme martial artist. My mental state cultivation has just reached the early stage of 4th grade supreme martial artist. The advancement of one's realm and strength would determine who would be in charge of the overall situation and who would be in charge of killing enemies with the immortal sword." Fowling, who had personally presided over the battle between heaven and earth, was definitely the most suitable person to lead the overall situation. At the same time, the breakthrough of the martial god realm had caused a tremendous change in his cultivation and strength. He wanted to speed up the process of adapting to the strength of the breakthrough through fighting against powerful opponents. After all, after the tribulation of the god's tribulation, he still had to do something even more risky, something that would directly challenge the rules of the heavenly way. He needed to master the strength of the peak realm as soon as possible. Therefore, in the face of Thaling's interrogation, Yuhauran replied without hiding anything. Now, I already have the strength of an 8th grade supreme martial artist. Emperor Wu's cultivation of the 9th grade supreme martial artist realm directly skipped a big realm and advanced to the 9th grade supreme martial god realm. Moreover, he advanced to the 4 auxiliary realms of the supreme martial artist, which gave him the strength of an 8th grade supreme martial artist. Chapter 2037. In a mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, Yuhauran, guard the north of the mountain range with the immortal killing sword. The extent of Yuhauran's increase in realm and strength was similar to what he had expected, so the tower spirit immediately instructed while secretly heaving a sigh of relief. Yes, sir. After answering the order, he used the space arcane martial skill to teleport him to the top of a mountain in the north of the mountain range. Then, he put the 3 divine veins, 1 upper grade level 1, 1 medium grade level 1, and 1 lower grade level 1 divine veins into a sword that exuded a strong blood chi, evil chi, and murderous intent. Then, he sat cross-legged in front of the sword. Lu Yuan, Qing Feng, Wu Zhengjun, Palace. Use the divine veins and myriad drug milk in your hands to activate the sinister ocean overturning evil spirit array. After Yuhauran, the blood void beast, the long-armed ape, and Yusiki were in position, Thaling continued to give orders to the 4 people in the prince's mansion. Yes, sir. After answering the order at the same time, Lu Yuan, Qing Feng, Wu Zhengjun, and Palace quickly rushed out of the mansion. They each held a struggling white dragon in their hands and landed on the top of the 4 mountains in the northwest, southwest, northeast, and southeast of the mountain range. Then they directly put the struggling white dragon in their hands into the mountains and sat cross-legged on the top of the mountains. Qin Lingfei, the sword without trace. Activate the array in the prince's mansion with all your strength. Then cooperate with the stellar transposition array in the mountain range to kill the shameless spies. After Lu Yuan and the other 3 people sat down, Thaling continued to give orders to Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace in the prince's mansion. Yes, sir. Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace immediately responded from the prince's mansion. Then, the prince's mansion, which was calmly floating in the air, suddenly formed a strong suction force and began to crazily devour the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the mountain range and the star power in the distant void. Then, a chain condensed by innate spiritual energy stretched out from the mansion. The chain broke through the barriers of time and space and instantly reached the void 30,000 meters away from the mountain range. When a master of Buddha Dao was about to retreat to dodge, it directly locked him in place and pulled him into the mansion instantly. That's it. Get in there. After receiving Thaling's signal, a green willow branch suddenly stretched out from the sea. Tied to the willow branch was a mountain-like octopus demonic beast with 8 tentacles and a 1,000,000-meter-long sea snake demonic beast with a body as black as ink. As Su Han Wen scolded contemptuously, he gently swung the willow branch and directly threw the octopus demonic beast and the sea snake demonic beast into the mountain range. Activate the ocean-covering devilish formation. The moment the octopus demonic beast and the sea snake demonic beast, whose cultivation had reached the early stage of the second tribulation immortal realm, were forcefully thrown into the mountain range by Su Hanwen, Thaling, who had quickly returned to his original victor body, ordered Lu Yuan, Qing Feng, and the other 3 people. The ocean-covering devilish formation, which was quickly activated, immediately began to extract all the water energy above the mountain range. At the same time, It guided the rich star energy accumulated in the mountain range to form starlight chains, which began to whip and restrict the octopus demonic beast and the sea snake demonic beast. However, in the face of the octopus demonic beast and the sea snake demonic beast, whose cultivation had reached the early stage of the second tribulation immortal realm, the starlight chains, whose power was only at the peak of the ninth grade supreme realm, were easily broken and shattered like ordinary iron chains. In this regard, Thaling, who had returned to the space-time victor body, did not panic at all. Instead, he used the space-time origin energy in his original victor body to assist his divine thought to pay attention to the octopus demonic beast and the sea snake demonic beast at all times. Kill, exterminate, trap, assist, kill. When two of the octopus demonic beast tentacles were temporarily bound by the starlight chains due to its carelessness, Thaling immediately ordered Howren and the other three people. Go! After hearing Thaling's order, Howren, Yusiki, and long-armed ape immediately stretched out their hands and patted the swords beside them. Subsequently, a pure and sharp sword energy gushed out from the three swords respectively. Then, three pure and sharp sword energies instantly appeared in the swords beside the blood void beast, crossing the barriers of time and space, and then quickly merged into the swords. Kill! The blood void beast, who had quickly grasped the sword hilt, soared into the sky, and slashed out a terrifying sword energy that could shake the entire mountain range. The terrifying sword energy quickly cut off two of the tentacles that were temporarily bound by the starlight chains. The pain caused by the chopped tentacles made the octopus demonic beast furious instantly. The remaining 6 tentacles quickly slapped toward the blood void beast and the swords in his hands. Kill, assist, exterminate. After seeing that the blood void beast, who was wielding the celestial culling sword, had successfully chopped off 2 of the octopus demonic beast tentacles, Thaling's expression did not change at all as he continued to give his orders. The blood void beast, who was holding the celestial culling sword tightly, made use of the advantage of the formation to instantly return to the valley in the east of the mountain range. After that, he quickly extended his small claws and slapped the celestial culling sword, which had been inserted into the ground again. The celestial culling sword, and celestial trapping sword also surged out 3 pure sword energies, and they quickly merged into Yusiki's celestial slashing sword. Then, Yusiki, who was holding the hilt of the sword of fatality, soared into the sky and slashed out a terrifying sword energy that could shake the entire mountain range. Poof, poof, poof. Following the sound of 3 items being chopped off, 3 of the octopus demonic beast's 6 tentacles were chopped off. However, the remaining 3 tentacles, which contained god power, soul power, and the power of the natural order, slapped directly on the sword peak of the celestial slashing sword. Fortunately, with the support of the formation, not only did the celestial slashing sword's attack power increase by more than 10 times, but the defense of the sword also reached the level of ultimate honorable. Therefore, with the help of the impact of the tentacles, Yusiki, who had instantly returned to the west of the mountain range, inserted the celestial slashing sword, which was not damaged at all, back into the deep pit. Kill, assist. Seeing that Yusiki's attack with the celestial slashing sword had caused far more damage to the octopus demonic beast than he had expected, Thaling's eyes flashed with surprise as he continued to give his orders. The celestial trapping sword, which was quickly infused with the 3 pure sword energies of the celestial culling sword, and celestial slashing sword, was grabbed by the long-armed ape. The moment the long-armed ape reached out to grab the sword, the talent of his ancestral bloodline allowed him to subconsciously perform a sword technique that he had created at the last minute. Attack! Chapter 2038. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Boom! Along with a deafening roar, the horrifying sword Chi condensed by long-armed ape's self-created sword technique not only blasted the octopus demonic beast back dozens of meters, but also broke through the defense of its soft abdomen. Immediately after, countless ink-black liquids spurted out from the wound on its abdomen like a waterfall. All the flowers and trees in the mountain range that were stained by the ink-black liquid instantly died and turned into black liquid. Along with the loss of the ink-black liquid, the horrifying aura of the octopus demonic beast also dropped rapidly. Slaughter, extinction, trap, attack. Seeing that the octopus demonic beast cultivation was about to drop to the second tribulation immortal realm, Thowling was ecstatic. He did not expect long-armed ape's self-created sword technique to be so powerful. Yu Haoran reached out to hold the immortal slaying sword that had been infused with the immortal slaughtering sword, the immortal eliminating sword, and the immortal trapping sword. As he soared into the sky, he directly performed a pinnacle supreme sword technique from the Destiny Stone Tablet's memory inheritance. The pinnacle supreme sword technique, coupled with the immortal slaying sword, quickly condensed a blood-red sword chi that was emitting a strong, evil spirit, grievance, blood, and killing intent. The horrifying blood-red sword chi was like the one performed by long-armed ape. It swept across with an unstoppable momentum and heavily blasted on the octopus demonic beast's head, which had the strongest defense. Boom! Along with a deafening roar, the blood-red sword chi that blasted on the octopus demonic beast's head not only broke through the defense of the sea of consciousness, but also swallowed up the divine soul that was trying to dodge. The sea serpent demonic beast, who had been obstructed and isolated by the ocean-overturning mystic killing formation, saw that the octopus demonic beast, whose strength was not inferior to his, had its divine soul destroyed by Yu Haoran and the others using the immortal slaying four swords formation. The sea serpent demonic beast was so terrified that he turned around and planned to escape without any hesitation. However, right at this moment, Thowling's hoarse voice suddenly rang in his ears. Lu Yuan, Qing Feng, Wu Zhengjun, and Palace, immediately take the myriad drug milk. Use all your power to activate the divine veins in the formation that you have fused with the formation flags and activate the ocean-overturning mystic killing formation's strongest power. After hearing Thowling's order, Lu Yuan and the others quickly took out a pill bottle and swallowed a drop of myriad drug milk. The demonic armed beast, demonic chi, demonic sword, ape, king the sword, demonic, onic, demonic beast, demonic sword ape. 4 swords attack. 4 half-tribulation immortal realm experts. If they took the initiative to run away, not only would they lose the confidence to move forward bravely, but it would also affect their strength. Therefore, Thowling immediately ordered Yu Haoran and the others when he saw that the ocean-overturning mystic killing formation was barely able to restrain the sea serpent that was trying to escape. After hearing Thowling's order, Yu Haoran, Yusiki, Blood Void Beast, and Long-Armed Ape didn't hesitate at all. They pulled out their swords and immediately soared into the sky while performing their strongest sword arts. Yusiki and Blood Void Beast's sword arts slashed the sea serpent's tail and abdomen respectively. Although they didn't directly break through the sea serpent's tough defenses, they still made the sea serpent struggle violently in pain. Long-Armed Ape's self-created sword art slashed directly at the sea serpent's vital point. The terrifyingly sharp sword chi didn't just break through the vital point's defense. It also directly destroyed the sea serpent's internal organs. While the sea serpent was heavily injured, its terrifying aura was also dropping rapidly. Just as the sea serpent was about to overdraft its own divine power and soul power to forcefully drive a stronger power to control the rules and break free from the shackles of the starlight chains, Yu Haoran used the sword technique with the help of the celestial slaying sword to directly slash the sea serpent's mountain-like head. Along with a loud explosion, the sea serpent's defense was directly broken through. The blood-red sword chi directly swallowed the sea serpent's godly soul. Boom! Along with a loud explosion caused by a heavy object falling down, the sea serpent's million-meter-long body that had its godly soul wiped out crashed into the ground of the mountain range. looking at the corpses of the octopus monster and sea snake monster that had fallen into the mountain range, Howren and the tower spirit, who had quickly left the main body's domain tower, couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Kill. Just when Howren and Thaling heaved a sigh of relief and planned to continue using the ocean-covering mystic killing formation and the 4 immortal slaying swords formation to help Su Hanwen reduce the pressure of the siege, Qin Lingfei's crisp voice suddenly came from the prince's mansion. Along with the crisp voice, a dazzling golden light quickly rushed out of the mansion. Trying to escape, seeing the golden light emerging from the mansion, there was a 9-story golden pagoda that was about to break through the mansion's defense formation and escape. Howren sneered and directly blasted out the fist art inherited from the ancient witch's memory. Thaling, on the other hand, led Siki, the blood void beast, and a long-armed ape to use interference methods to weaken the strength of the terrifying powerhouses in the sea and help Su Hanwen reduce the pressure of the siege. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar and a miserable howl, a bald, fat monk rushed out of the golden pagoda in the square of the mansion's front yard. His Buddhist robe was in tatters, his mouth was bleeding, his face was pale, and his expression was very miserable. Appearing in the square of the mansion in a flash, Howren did not waste any time and directly stabbed the forehead of the master of Buddhism with the immortal slaying sword in his hand. However, when the tip of the immortal slaying sword was less than a meter away from the master of Buddhism, Howren's face suddenly changed, and he had to immediately withdraw the sword. Because in the hands of the master of Buddhism, there was suddenly a person he had been searching for nearly 2 years. This person was the peak master of the Qingyun Peak of the 100 Qi Gate, and his master in both his previous and current lives, Feng Qingyun. Howren, let me go immediately. Otherwise, don't blame me for destroying the body and soul of your master, Feng Qingyun. Holding Feng Qingyun in one hand and the golden pagoda in the other, the master of Buddhism threatened fiercely. As long as you let my master go immediately, I, Howren, promise to let you leave the prince's mansion safely. In the face of the master of Buddhism's threat, Howren immediately made his own promise. However, how could the master of Buddhism believe in Howren's promise, which was riddled with loopholes, when Howren had single-handedly led the Buddhist cultivators through the destruction of the ancient continent and gradually occupied the entire western region of the Tianxin continent after thousands of years of development? Chapter 2039. In the front yard square of the prince's mansion, the master of Buddhism, who did not believe in Howren's promise, directly lifted Feng Qingyun, who was in a coma, with a slightly ferocious look, and threatened in an urgent tone. You don't play word games with me because I don't buy it at all. Now, immediately open the mansion's defensive formation and let me leave safely. Otherwise, I will immediately destroy Feng Qingyun's body and soul. In fact, one could not blame the master of Buddhism for being so anxious. Because when he used Feng Qingyun to threaten Howren, he accidentally found that Feng Qingyun, who had overdrawn all his potential in life, was at the end of his life. If Howren were to discover that something was amiss, then not only would he not be able to leave the prince consort's residence safely, he might even end up in a miserable state where he could neither live nor die. Therefore, he had to escape from the prince's mansion before Howren found out the true state of Feng Qingyun. He had to escape from a mountain range where the prince's mansion was located, and then return to Spirited Mountain to activate the defensive means to resist Howren's thunderous revenge. Master of Buddhism, as long as you are willing to swear on your inner demons and martial arts that you will let go of my master the moment you leave the mansion, then I, Howren, will immediately open the mansion's defensive formation and let you leave safely. Whether it was in his previous life or this life, he had never really come into contact with the master of Buddhism in the western region, so he did not know his temperament and character. Therefore, when facing the threat of the master of Buddhism, he did not dare to take the risk to rescue his master, nor did he dare to rashly use his divine thought to check his master's real condition, so as to avoid angering the master of Buddhism and hurting his master. Therefore, when he saw the master of Buddhism, who was ready to die together with him, Jiang Feng Yi, who was helpless, could only choose to take a step back and swear on his inner demons to ensure his master's safety. As for the master of Buddhism, with his current cultivation and strength, as well as the situation where Buddhism was weak, he could directly kill his way to Spirited Mountain in the western region in the future, and then kill him personally to avenge his master's capture and imprisonment. Alright, running out of oil doesn't mean death. As long as Feng Qingyun did not die at the moment when he was out of his control, it would not be considered a violation of the oath. Therefore, after nodding and agreeing to Yu Haoran's condition of taking a step back, the master of Buddhism quickly swore on his inner demons and martial arts. Yu Haoran kept his promise. He took the initiative to open the mansion's defensive formation, allowing the master of Buddhism to slowly rise into the air and leave. The moment they left the defensive formation of the mansion, the master of Buddhist Tao tossed Feng Qingyun to Yu Haoran and rushed into the sky to escape the mountain range. Ignoring the master of Buddhism who was desperately trying to escape, Yu Haoran quickly caught the falling Feng Qingyun. But then, a terrifying killing intent that could change the color of the entire world and make all living beings tremble rapidly rose from Yu Haoran's body. As an alchemist in the alchemy divinity realm, Yu Haoran's understanding of living beings' physical conditions was much better than that of supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm experts. The overdraft of primordial energy, soul power, and physical essence had completely destroyed Feng Qingyun's foundation. Even a divine elixir that surpassed grade 1-9 couldn't restore his martial arts foundation. Overdrafting one's lifespan beyond the martial arts saint realm was a violation of the iron law set by the rules of heaven. It went against the destiny of living beings given by the rules of destiny. Under the backlash of the two rules, not to mention the divine elixir and divine elixir that could make up for lifespan, even divine soul possession couldn't save Feng Qingyun's life. It was because of Feng Qingyun's powerless state that Yu Haoran, who was filled with anger and regret, released a terrifying killing intent that exceeded his own strength. The master of Buddhism, who had just escaped to the central region, couldn't help but change his expression when he felt the familiar killing intent. He turned his head to look in the direction of the prince's mansion in the southern region and muttered to himself with a solemn expression, "For the eternal inheritance of Buddhism, it seems that I have to use the heritage of the holy mountain from the Middle Ages." Thaling, who was assisting Su Hanwen in launching sneak attacks and interfering with the terrifying experts of the sea area, Yusiki, the blood void beast, and the long-armed ape, as well as Lu Yuan, Qingyun, Wu Jingjun, and Palace, who were maintaining the ocean-covering devilish formation, couldn't help but change their expressions when they felt the terrifying killing intent emerging from the prince's mansion. Whether it was Thaling, who had been with Feng Qingyun the longest, Wu Jingjun, who had a brotherly relationship with Feng Qingyun, or the blood void beast, who had only been with Feng Qingyun for a short time, they had never seen Yu Haoran release such a terrifying killing intent. Therefore, they immediately gave up on launching sneak attacks on the experts of the sea area and turned to go straight to the prince's mansion. They wanted to see what had happened to Yu Haoran. The 7 terrifying experts of the sea area, who had been attacked and interfered with by Thaling and the others, had gradually fallen into a disadvantageous position. They had even begun to think of retreating. Now, after sensing the terrifying killing intent that was not inferior to theirs, they mistakenly thought that another expert of the same realm had come to help them. Therefore, they immediately used their strongest means to temporarily force Su Hanwen to retreat. Then, they directly tore open the hollow and fled back to the boundless sea area. Master of Buddhism, I, Yu Haoran, hereby swear that I will kill my way to the holy mountain in 3 days. I will slaughter millions of your disciples, destroy the foundation of your Buddhism, extract your 3 souls and 7 spirits, and suppress the world forever. Just as Thaling and the others rushed to the front of the prince's mansion, they heard Yu Haoran's hoarse voice swearing. Destroying an orthodoxy that had been passed down for countless years was different from slaughtering an inherited family. This was because not only would it implicate more creatures, but it also involved a mysterious battle for luck. Therefore, after hearing Yu Haoran's hoarse vow, the tower spirit and the others' expressions changed, and they quickly rushed into the mansion. However, when Thaling and Wu Jingjun saw the dying middle-aged man in Yu Haoran's arms, they vaguely understood why Yu Haoran would make such a crazy vow. Although they had not known each other for a long time, Wu Jingjun, as his disciple, hurriedly withdrew his killing intent and evil spirit. Then, he walked to Yu Haoran's side and directly knelt in front of Feng Qingyun. Seeing Wu Jingjun kneeling on the ground, Qin Lingfei and the sword without trace, who had gradually calmed down from their panic, hurriedly walked behind Yu Haoran and knelt in front of Feng Qingyun. Little friend Yu, under the influence of the terrifying killing intent you just released, your master Feng Qingyun will soon enter the state of terminal lucidity. Therefore, you need to prepare to say goodbye in advance. Su Hanwan, who did not chase after the terrifying experts in the sea area, hurriedly rushed into the prince's mansion. With his early stage 3 tribulation immortal realm cultivation base, he immediately sensed Feng Qingyun's condition. Chapter 2040. In the square of the front yard of the prince's mansion, after hearing Su Hanwan's reminder, Yu Haoran slowly calmed down from his sadness and regret. He turned to look at Wu Jingjun, Qin Lingfei, and the sword without trace, who were kneeling beside him, and a look of understanding flashed across his eyes. Then, he immediately mobilized his divine sense, which was not inferior to that of an 8th-grade supreme martial artist, and directly scanned the entire southern region, eastern region, and central region. Finally, he found Chu Zhongyu and the others. Eldest senior brother, senior brothers, junior brother Yiming, junior sister Yuding, stay where you are and don't move. I'll immediately arrange for experts to bring you back to the sect. After using his divine sense to tell Chu Zhongyu and the others to wait where they were, Yu Haoran turned to Qing Feng, Yu Siki, and Lu Yuan and instructed, Senior brother Qing Feng, please immediately go to a dense forest at the border of the southern region and southern wilderness to meet up with my 7 senior brothers. Don't worry, junior brother Yu, I'll go right away. After integrating his divine sense into the specific location given by Yu Haoran, Qing Feng nodded and soared into the sky. At the same time, he directly tore through the void of the mountain range and rushed to the southern wilderness. Sister, please go to a valley at the border of the southern region and central region to meet up with my junior sister Gongsun Yuding. Xiao Ran, my condolences. After comforting her, Yu Siki soared into the sky and also tore through the void of the mountain range and rushed to the valley where Gongsun Yuding was. Senior brother Lu, please go to the Blue Gold City in the central region and bring my 8th senior brother Lin Xian here. Got it. After nodding, Lu Yuan transformed into a sword ray and rushed to the Blue Gold City in the central region at a speed comparable to that of tearing through the void. Junior brother Jinjun, go now and arrange for the people of the 100 Chi Gate to return to the sect. Then, mobilize the entire sect to cultivate the morning hall. After Qing Feng, Yu Siki, and Lu Yuan left, Yu Haoran turned his head and ordered Wu Jinjun, who was kneeling beside him. Senior brother, I understand. After nodding, Wu Jinjun got up and went straight to the courtyard where the people of the 100 Chi Gate were temporarily staying. After everything was arranged properly, Yu Haoran took out a ginseng fruit and a drop of myriad drug mill from his storage ring, preparing to prolong his master Feng Qingyun's final moments of recovery to give him more time to say goodbye. With the strength and means of Qing Feng, Lu Yuan, and Yu Siki, it only took them less than 5 minutes to bring all the disciples of Qing Yun back to the prince's mansion. Although Chu Zhongyu and the others were initially shocked by the changes in the mountain range and the innate spiritual energy that filled the prince's mansion, when they saw the unconscious master sitting on the ground, all of their expressions changed and surrounded him. 9th junior brother, what happened to master? As the 2nd senior brother, Lu Guangwei, who had the deepest relationship with Feng Qingyun, asked in a trembling voice as he looked at his master's pale face. His foundation has been destroyed, his life has come to an end, and Master is about to become an immortal. Yu Haoran said sadly as he shook his head. Master. After hearing Yu Haoran's reply, the disciples of Qing Yun immediately rushed in front of Feng Qing Yun and shouted loudly, Senior brother, everything has been arranged. At this time, Wu Zhengjun, who had finished dealing with the affairs of the sect, returned to the square. After nodding to Chu Zhongyu and the others, he once again knelt beside Yu Haoran and replied, In. After nodding, Yu Haoran looked up at Chu Zhongyu and the others. There is no need for Yu Haoran to remind them. With Wu Zhengjuan's example, Chu Zhongyu and the others immediately knelt in front of Feng Qingyun. Yang Kai put the prepared myriad drug milk into Feng Qingyun's mouth and then used his divine force to send it into his body. When the rich spirit energy from the myriad drug milk began to nourish his body and soul, Feng Qingyun gradually woke up from his unconscious state. Haoran, after opening his eyes, Feng Qingyun saw that the person in front of him was actually Yu Haoran, the person he had been searching for all this time, causing him to immediately shout excitedly, Master, don't speak for a while, eat this ginseng fruit first. After signaling Feng Qingyun to temporarily control his excitement, Yu Haoran put the ginseng fruit in front of his mouth. In this regard, Feng Qingyun smiled and shook his head to refuse. Haoran, as a spirit fruit nurtured by the earth spirit root, the ginseng fruit is the best spirit fruit to assist in breaking through to the martial god realm. Giving it to a dying person like me is a complete waste. You should keep it for yourself. Master, just 20 minutes ago, disciples successfully passed the God Tribulation Thunder Punishment and became an immortal God Spirit Master. The ginseng fruit is no longer useful to me, so Master should eat it yourself. Yu Haoran, who did not take back the ginseng fruit, tried to suppress the sadness in his heart and tried to persuade Feng Qingyun with a smile. Hearing that his most valued disciple had become an immortal God Spirit Master in less than 5 years, Feng Qingyun was extremely shocked. But at the same time, a trace of gratification and satisfaction emerged in his heart. Good, very good. Although Yu Haoran no longer needed the ginseng fruit to help him break through to the martial god realm, Feng Qingyun still had other disciples. Therefore, Feng Qingyun, who was struggling to sit up, glanced at the 11 disciples kneeling beside him before finally stopping on Chu Zhongyu. Haoran, if you still haven't resolved the resentment in your heart, then I will waste this precious ginseng fruit. If you have resolved the resentment in your heart and no longer bear grudges against the mistakes of your master and your senior brothers, then give the ginseng fruit to your senior brother. Feng Qingyun wondered if his most valued disciple, Yu Haoran, had completely resolved the mistakes they had made in the past. Was he still as enthusiastic and caring towards Feng Qingyun's disciples as before? This was what Feng Qingyun was most worried about before his death. So he intended to use the ginseng fruit to test whether his disciple had really let go of the resentment in his heart. Fortunately, Yu Haoran's next move made him feel relieved, and at the same time, he did not have any regrets in his heart. Senior brother, here you are. Facing his master's test, Yu Haoran did not hesitate to throw the jade box containing the ginseng fruit to Chu Zhongyu, who was kneeling beside him. Even ordinary people in the Tianxian continent knew about the ginseng fruit. So how could Chu Zhongyu, an expert at the peak of the third-grade martial saint realm, not know about it? Therefore, in the face of such a precious spirit fruit, he did not know whether he should be ecstatic to accept it or immediately return it to Yu Haoran. However, Yu Haoran was not in the mood to pay attention to Chu Zhongyu. After throwing the jade box containing the ginseng fruit to him, he looked at Feng Qingyun and asked. Chapter 2041. In the square, in the front yard of the prince's mansion, Yu Haoran did not hesitate to give the ginseng fruit to Chu Zhongyu, letting Feng Qingyun know that his most valued disciple had completely dispelled his resentment towards Qingyun's sect. This made him feel deeply gratified, and at the same time, he did not care about the tribulations and tortures he had suffered. At this moment, he only wanted to return to his own sect, his own peak, and his own yard, and then quietly wait for death to come. Howren, send me back to Qingyun Peak's Pingzheng residence. Okay. He could guess that his master did not want to reveal the grievances between him and the master of Buddhism, mainly because he was worried that he, who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance, would definitely kill his way to the holy mountain of the western region to take revenge. Yu Haoran did not want his master to worry about him before he left, so he did not continue to ask. Instead, he wrapped Feng Qingyun with divine power and personally sent him to Qingyun Peak's Pingzheng residence. Haoran, thank you for your hard work. Seeing the clear wind peak that far surpassed the immortal realm, Feng Qingyun didn't need to ask too much. He knew that this was Yu Haoran's handiwork. This made him feel even more assured about the future of Clear Wind Peak and the disciples of Clear Wind Peak. Master, since I am a disciple of Qingyun Peak, it is natural for me to improve the cultivation environment of the sect. It is not hard work. Yu Haoran shook his head and explained modestly, carefully putting Feng Qingyun on the chair in the main hall of Pingzheng residence. Haoran, stand aside first. After turning his head to Yu Haoran, Feng Qingyun looked directly at the grief-stricken Chu Zhongyu and warned him. Zhongyu, as the eldest senior brother of Qingyun's sect, you have the obligation to take care of your junior brother and junior sister, and also have the responsibility to carry forward Qingyun Peak. So after I leave, you will take over the position of Peak Lord of Qingyun Peak. Master, whether his cultivation and strength, experience and vision, as well as connections and influence, ninth junior brother is far better than me. Why not? If time went back 5 years, Chu Zhongyu would definitely be ecstatic to accept the position of the Peak Master of Qingyun Peak. But when the world's spiritual energy recovered and the entire world was in turmoil, he hoped that Yu Haoran, who was countless times better than him in all aspects, could take over the position of the Peak Lord of Clear Cloud Peak and then lead the disciples of Clear Cloud Peak to conquer the world. However, before Chu Zhongchu could finish his suggestion, he was interrupted by Feng Qingyun. Zhongyu, the pond of Qingyun Peak is too small. It can no longer hold your ninth junior brother, a true dragon. Only the vast world and the endless void will be the place where he will roam proudly in the future. Therefore, only you can sit on the seat of the Peak Lord of Qingyun Peak. Yes, Master. Originally, he had hoped that through the relationship between Master and disciple, he would be able to bring all of Qingyun's disciples into the prince's mansion. In this way, not only would they be able to obtain the full protection of ninth junior brother, they would also be able to enjoy all the benefits of the prince's mansion. However, since his master had taken the initiative to give up, Chu Zhongyu could not continue to persuade him in order to avoid his ninth junior brother's displeasure and disloyalty. Therefore, he cupped his hands and agreed to take over the Peak Lord of Qingyun Peak. Xiao Wei, ever since you left the clan and went to the 100 Qi Gate to pursue the way of immortality, you have always been by my side. You and I are not only master and disciple, but also close brothers. Looking at the tearful Lu Guangwei, Feng Qingyun did not put on the airs of a master. Instead, he spoke in the tone of a friend and brother. If Qingyun can survive the immeasurable calamity, you can leave Qingyun Peak and return to the secular world. Then, you can open a restaurant that belongs to you. Then, you can get married and have children. Young master, Xiao Wei does not want to be separated from you. Xiao Wei wants to serve you forever. Lu Xiaowei directly knelt at Feng Qingyun's feet and cried bitterly as he begged. Feng Qingyun firmly shook his head and then looked at the third disciple, Dong Mingyu. Mingyu, your talent and potential. In the following period of time, Feng Qingyun made the most reasonable arrangements for the character and future of each disciple. Then, he waved his hand and motioned for everyone to leave for the time being. Zhongyu, take your junior brothers and junior sisters out first. Yes, master. Knowing that his master had more important things to entrust to his ninth junior brother, Chu Zhongyu, who had completely matured, nodded in response. He stretched out his hand and lifted Lu Guangwei, who was unwilling to leave, and then led everyone out of the hall. After Chu Zhongyu and the others left, Feng Qingyun looked a little nervous and expectant and asked, Haoran, Did you successfully comprehend several auxiliary laws of the law of trapping? Because when Howren used the method of wrapping him in divine power to send him back to the righteous peace residence, the power of the law of fragrance and the law of taste that were about to disappear suddenly became active. This situation could only mean one thing. That was, they encountered the same auxiliary laws of the law. That's right. Howren, whose cultivation and strength were stronger, not only felt the fluctuation of the power of law in his master's sea of consciousness, but also knew what kind of law he had comprehended. Howren, how many auxiliary laws of the law of trapping have you comprehended now? After getting confirmation from Howren, Feng Qingyun asked more nervously and expectantly. Replying to Master, among the 13 auxiliary powers of laws required to advance to the fruit of entrapment law, I have successfully comprehended the powers of laws of joy, anger, sorrow, fear, love, evil, and desire that represent the 7 emotions of living beings, as well as the powers of laws of sight, hearing, touch, and mind that represent the 6 senses of the body. Howren replied without hiding anything. This. After hearing Howren's reply, Feng Qingyun couldn't help but gasp. He, who also had a monstrous talent, spent decades to barely comprehend the power of the law of fear and the law of love, which represented the emotions of the life, as well as the power of the law of fragrance and the law of taste, which represented the 6 senses of the physical body. Thanks to his second disciple, Lu Guangwei, who specialized in all kinds of delicacies, he realized the true meaning of fragrance and taste. But what about Howren? Even when he was trapped in the 9-story demon subduing pagoda of Spirited Mountain, he would often get some scattered information about Howren from the chats of the 9 Buddhist powerhouses who had refined him. For example, the power of the law of life and death, the power of the law of strength, and the power of the law of spring, summer, autumn, and winter that he showed in the southern region and the 5 regions hidden dragon list. In other words, to be able to comprehend the 11 types of dual laws of the law of trapping, it was very likely that he had comprehended them when he was casually cultivating. How could Feng Qingyun not be shocked by such an incredible comprehension ability? Chapter 2042. Qingyun Peak, Pingzheng Residence. After a shocking idea flashed through his mind, Feng Qingyun took a deep breath and tried to calm down the excitement in his heart. Then he asked solemnly, Howren, do you know why the Master of Buddhism wanted to capture me alive? I don't know, except for the top-grade Saint Realm Guqin. His master did not have any treasures that were worth coveting. Therefore, in the face of Feng Qingyun's interrogation, Howren shook his head to show that he did not know. Among the 10 forbidden secret methods in the Middle Ages, there was a forbidden secret method created by the Methriya Buddha at the peak of Buddhism. He was known as the future Buddha. He used the power of the rule of dreams to create the deprivation secret method. Feng Qingyun did not immediately explain why the master of Buddhism wanted to capture him alive. Instead, he suddenly introduced the forbidden secret method in the Middle Ages. Master, is it a secret method that can forcibly deprive others of the power of law and then integrate it into one's own comprehension and finally master the deprivation secret method? Hearing his master mention the deprivation secret method, Howren suddenly remembered that when he looked at the memory inheritance of the Destiny Stone tablets some time ago, he saw a record of the deprivation secret method in the description of all the forbidden secret methods. Yes, seeing that Howren also knew about the long-lost deprivation secret method, Feng Qingyun's eyes flashed with a trace of shock. He nodded to confirm and began to explain in detail the reason and conspiracy of the Master of Buddhism to capture him alive. It turned out that the core inheritance of the Buddhist cultivation method was inextricably linked to the law of trapping fruit. Every master of Buddhism could rely on the core inheritance of the cultivation method to successfully comprehend 1 or 2 of the 13 kinds of auxiliary power of law when they reached the martial sage realm. And with the promotion of their cultivation and the improvement of their strength, they could continue to comprehend the remaining auxiliary power of law. But success was because of the core inheritance of the cultivation method. Failure was also because of the core inheritance of the cultivation method. The founder of Buddhism, Amitabha, who created the core inheritance of the cultivation method, did not succeed in comprehending all the auxiliary power of law, so he did not really perfect the core inheritance of the cultivation method. This also caused the successor of the master of Buddhism to be unable to comprehend all the auxiliary power of law. The Maitreya Buddha, who was known as the future Buddha, used his great wisdom and perseverance to create the deprivation fusion secret method that could make up for the shortcomings of the core inheritance middle method. Unfortunately, there had never been an expert who could truly master the trapping law, one of the top 5 laws. Those who could successfully comprehend the 13 auxiliary laws were also as rare as phoenix feathers and unicorn horns. Therefore, ever since the Maitreya Buddha created the taboo, mystic art of deprivation and fusion, it had never been used. Until now, the Lord of Spiritual Mountain had unexpectedly discovered that Feng Qingyun had successfully comprehended the law of happiness, law of anger, law of fragrance, and law of taste. Moreover, these are the 4 auxiliary powers that the Master of Buddha Tao had been eager to complete. Therefore, he directly used his powerful strength to capture Feng Qingyun. If it weren't for Feng Qingyun constantly overdrawing his own elemental energy, soul power, physical essence, and lifespan to bitterly resist the refinement of the 9 great wisdom kings, he would have been dead by now. If it weren't for the fact that the Master of Buddha Tao had been dealing with the crisis facing Spiritual Mountain and temporarily couldn't find the time to personally take action. Otherwise, as early as 2 years ago, he would have been deprived of the fusion secret method and forcibly extracted the power of the 4 laws. He wouldn't have been able to hold on until the day he met Yu Haoran. Haoran, do you still remember the heart cultivation method of Buddhism that I gave you back then? After explaining in detail the reason why the Master of Buddha Tao captured him alive, Feng Qingyun took a deep breath and asked solemnly, "I remember." Yu Haoran nodded. That year, in the auction held by the Heavenly Fragrance Pavilion in Xianyang City, the secret book that recorded the mental cultivation method of Buddhism had once been stimulated by the devil Qi, and the virtual body of the Buddha had burst out. How could he forget? Back then, when I received the heart cultivation method of Buddhism, I also accidentally obtained the complete taboo mystic art of deprivation and fusion. Master, I don't need you to make any sacrifices. At first, Yu Haoran didn't know why his master suddenly told him the reason for his grievances with the Master of Buddha Tao. Then, when he heard that his master had also obtained the complete version of the taboo mystic art of deprivation and fusion, combined with the 4 auxiliary laws that his master had comprehended and the missing auxiliary laws, he had already guessed what his master wanted to do next. In the more than 2 years that his master had been missing, except for exhorting a few familiar forces to pay attention to his master's whereabouts, he had never really searched for him. In the end, his master had been tortured by the Buddhist experts for more than 2 years, which filled his heart with endless regret and self-blame. Now, before his master was about to die, he still had to bear the double pain of the divine soul and the physical body to help him completely perfect the 13 auxiliary laws. How could he accept this with a clear conscience? Haoran, since you joined Qingyun Peak and worshipped me as your master, you have been silently contributing for the sect and have never asked for anything in return. But as your master, what about me? As a monstrous genius with amazing comprehension, Feng Qingyun was not surprised that Yu Haoran could guess his intentions in an instant. And through Yu Haoran's gift of the ginseng fruit to Chu Zhongyu without hesitation, as well as the transformation of the 100 Qi Gate and Qingyun Peak, Feng Qingyun was even more aware of his filial piety, so he was not surprised by his flat refusal. After raising his hand to signal his most valued disciple to stop talking, Feng Qingyun continued to explain. Not only did I not fulfill the basic responsibility of teaching and answering questions, but I chose to stand by and watch when you were in danger, which almost caused you to break with the sect. All of this is my fault. Master, I have long forgotten what happened in the past, so you don't have to keep blaming yourself for it. Seeing that his master had been blaming himself for the conflict that happened in the imperial palace of Xianyang City, Yu Haoran, who had long forgotten his resentment, hurriedly comforted and persuaded. Haoran, the conflict that happened in the imperial palace of Xianyang City is a knot in my heart that I will never be able to get rid of. Feng Qingyun, who did not change his mind because of Yu Haoran's comfort and persuasion, solemnly requested. Chapter 2043. Clear Cloud Peak, Righteous Peace Residence. Master, with your disciples' shocking comprehension ability, I can completely comprehend the laws of fragrance and taste in a short period of time. Why do you have to do this? Directly threatening his master with the curse of dying with everlasting regret, Yu Haoran knew that he could no longer refuse his master's last request before his death. He just didn't want to see his master suffer both physical and soul torture before his death, so he could only try his best to change his master's mind. Haoran, give your master a drop of the spirit liquid that can awaken my dormant consciousness. Ignoring Yu Haoran's last attempt to persuade him, Feng Qingyun directly reached out and asked for the myriad drug milk that could instantly restore his cultivation and strength. Seeing his master's resolute attitude, Yu Haoran could only sigh helplessly and then take out a drop of the myriad drug milk he had extorted from the ancient god race. Fearing that Yu Haoran would continue to persuade him, Feng Qingyun reached out and took the drop of myriad drug milk, swallowed it directly, and then, with the help of the huge amount of pure spirit energy released by the myriad drug milk, began to use his forbidden secret technique. As the two special power fluctuations that could make one's soul feel joy slowly emerged from between Feng Qingyun's eyebrows, Yu Haoran immediately felt the 11 auxiliary principles he had comprehended begin to boil violently. When the two special energy fluctuations completely left the space between Yu Haoran's eyebrows, there was no need for Feng Qingyun to use a secret technique to forcibly bestow them, nor for Yu Haoran to take the initiative to absorb and refine them. The two special powers merged directly into his sea of consciousness and quickly merged with the other 11 auxiliary powers of law. Although Feng Qingyun wanted to continue accompanying his master and accompany him to the end of his life, the rapid integration of the 13 auxiliary principles caused his consciousness to gradually enter a state of enlightenment that he could not freely control. Feeling the clear and bright aura emanating from Yu Haoran's body, Feng Qingyun felt extremely gratified. At the same time, a very satisfied and happy smile appeared on his face. And this happy and satisfied smile was forever fixed on Feng Qingyun's face. What was cause? What was effect? Only when there was a cause would there be an end result. The moment the result appeared, the process of the cause would end. As Yu Haoran continued to deepen his understanding of the law of karma, chains of different colors continued to appear above his head. One end of the chain was rooted in his sea of consciousness, while the other end of the chain extended to different locations in the Tianxian land and into the sea of consciousness of different living beings. Yu Haoran followed his instincts and slowly extended his right hand. Then, he pinched one of the pink chains between his thumb and index finger and gently squeezed it. Immediately after, the pink chain broke. In Weishan City, which was around 13,000 kilometers away from the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located, Blue Heart sat in her study within the city lord's residence. She stared fixedly at the clear portrait of Yu Haoran that was placed on the table. Deep longing appeared in her eyes. The moment Yu Haoran broke the pink chain, the longing in Blue Heart's eyes was gradually replaced by doubt. Who is this person? Why would he appear in my study? She reached out and picked up the portrait on the table. After looking at it carefully for a while, a trace of disdain flashed in her eyes. She directly used her Yuan Li to shatter the portrait in her hands and walked out of the study with a cold expression. Although the pink chain that was broken did not make any sound, Yu Haoran, who had entered a state of enlightenment, seemed to have been strongly disturbed and awakened from his ethereal state. When he slowly opened his eyes, there was not a trace of anger or fluctuation in his gaze. This meant that he did not feel any regret or dissatisfaction because of the sudden end of his state of enlightenment. The karma of marriage has been broken. From now on, we are strangers. I hope that Xan can find her own happiness in the future. Raising his head to look at the pink chain that he had broken, Yu Haoran sighed softly. He closed his eyes again and began to calm the aura of the law of karma. However, what he did not notice was that the pink chain that he had forcibly broken did not completely disappear. Instead, a faint pink gas gradually condensed at the broken part of the chain and connected the broken chain back together. After completely calming the aura of the law of karma, Yu Haoran, who had opened his eyes again, looked directly at his teacher, who was blooming with a happy smile on his face. 2 streams of hot tears involuntarily sprayed out of his eyes. Teacher Feng Qingyun has passed away. Yu Haoran, who allowed the hot tears to spray out of his mouth, mobilized all the strength in his body to the limit and poured into his vocal cords to shout to the sky. Accompanied by the deafening shout, which resounded through the sky and shook the mountains, Yu Haoran's sorrowful cry could be heard in every corner of the southern, central, eastern, northern, and western regions. Teacher Chu Zhongyu and the others who had heard the shout immediately rushed into the room, then knelt in front of Feng Qingyun and cried bitterly. Then came the people of Thaling and the prince's mansion who had heard the shout. They slowly landed outside the Ping residence and silently lowered their heads. Finally, the people of the 100 Qi Gate, except for Lai Yan, who, as the senior brother, put his hands behind his back and looked in the direction of the Ping residence with 2 streams of tears flowing down uncontrollably. The rest of the disciples of the gate all knelt on the ground. After hearing Yu Haoran's deafening shout, the faces of the senior members of the ancient demons, and ancient gods changed slightly. At the same time, they immediately ordered their clansmen not to leave the station. Then they all flew to the edge of the mountain range and silently lowered their heads. After hearing Yu Haoran shout, the Northern Expedition Army of the Central Region, under the leadership of Emperor Qin and the civil and military officials, silently lowered their heads in the direction of the Southern 100 Qi Gate. In the central, eastern, and northern regions, all the experts of the clans and sects who had contact with Yu Haoran also led all their clansmen and disciples in the direction of the Southern 100 Qi Gate and silently lowered their heads in grief. The clans and sects who had hatred for Yu Haoran either directly activated their strongest defense means or sought alliances everywhere, because they knew that Yu Haoran, who had fallen into grief and rage, would start a ruthless massacre. Wiping the remaining tears from the corners of his eyes, Yu Haoran stood up and walked to Feng Qingyun's side. Then he took out a crystal coffin and ordered Chu Zhongyu and the others. When we slaughter millions of creatures of the Buddhism sect, destroy the inheritance of Buddhism, and kill the master of Buddhism, it will be the grand day of our teacher's burial. 9th Junior Brother, when you kill your way to the holy mountain, don't forget these disappointing brothers behind you. Chu Zhongyu, who could not control his tears, knelt on one knee and begged. Chapter 2044. Qingyan Peak, Ping Zheng Residence. After leaving behind his promise, Yu Haoran carefully placed the corpse of his teacher, Feng Qingyun, into the crystal coffin and stored the coffin into the space-time victor. Then, he walked out of the living room and out of the Ping Zheng residence with an indifferent expression. Thaling, follow the original plan. After instructing Thaling, who was standing in front of the Ping Zheng residence, Yu Haoran flew back to the prince's mansion and appeared in his practice room in a flash. Little Kong, it's your turn. Yu Haoran solemnly instructed the Void Spirit Mouse, who was trying his best to suppress the breakthrough of the Venerable Realm. Yu Haoran, isn't this too risky? Hearing Yu Haoran's instruction, the Void Spirit Mouse asked with a hint of worry in his eyes. Although he had been hiding in the sealed practice room of the prince's mansion, he had seen the whole process of Yu Haoran's tribulation clearly through the means left behind by Thaling. The projections of hundreds of 9th-grade Supremes and half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the endless void, the heavenly ways rules, the terrifying experts in the forbidden zone of the Tianxian continent, and the terrifying experts in the distant sea. The last few lightning punishments that Yu Haoran encountered during his tribulation, as well as the tribulation that he encountered when accepting the god's tribulation lightning punishment reward, made the void spirit mouse, who knew that his background was heaven-defying, very worried. Because he was worried that he would also suffer the same terrifying lightning punishments and tribulations when he was about to break through to the Emperor realm and Divine Beast realm. He was even more worried that it would bring endless trouble to Yu Haoran. Little Kong, if the earth wants to stop you from breaking through, I'll crush the earth with my feet. If the heavens want to stop you from breaking through, I'll slay the heavens with my sword. After leaving his promise, Yu Haoran calmly turned around and left the practice room. He flew to the peak of the mountain where he would receive the god's tribulation lightning punishment, then quietly waited for the void spirit mouse to make the decision to break through. Not long after, the void spirit mouse, who had wrapped the ancestors' bones and the life and death soul stabilizing fruit with his demonic power, quickly appeared above the primitive forest. It lowered its head and glanced at the Thaling, the blood-void beast, and the others hidden in the depths of the mountain range, then glanced at Yu Haoran, who was meditating with his legs crossed. A trace of determination flashed through the void spirit mouse's eyes. It directly opened its mouth and swallowed the life-death soul stabilizing fruit, then forcibly merged the ancestors' remains into its body temporarily. Boom! Just as the life-death soul stabilizing fruit erupted with terrifying energy, a powerful aura rapidly rose from the void spirit mouse's body. Although it was only a breakthrough at the Emperor realm, the location of the space spirit mouse's breakthrough appeared in the mountain range where the 100 Qi Gate was located. Instantly, it attracted the attention of countless powerhouses and elite warriors in the Tianxian land. Some of the factions and experts who didn't know the origin of the void spirit mouse thought that it was just a strange beast in the mountain range that had ascended to the Emperor realm. They instantly lost interest and withdrew their divine sense. Some of the factions and experts who truly knew the origin of the void spirit mouse couldn't help but change their expressions, and their eyes revealed hesitation. Among them were the spirits of 3 Extinguishing, who was fighting over the Chaos Spirit Stones, and the Void Mirror's Artifact Spirit, who was in the middle of healing. According to the ironclad rules of the Heavenly Tao, peak existences like the Void Spirit Mouse were absolutely heaven-defying. They absolutely couldn't be allowed to ascend to the immortal God realm. This was also why the spirits of 3 Extinguishing had controlled the will of the heavens to attack the Void Spirit Mouse in his previous life. However, in the face of the Chaos Spirit Stones that could help him ascend to the 3rd Tribulation half-rotten realm, the spirits of 3 Extinguishing decided to violate the ironclad rules of the Heavenly Tao after a simple discussion and continue to fight for the Chaos Spirit Stones in the King of Hell's body. The Void Mirror suddenly stood up, the hesitation in its eyes replaced by struggle. It knew that it wasn't the only one in this world who knew about the existence of the demon god's ancient tomb. The Void Spirit Mouse, who had ascended to the immortal God realm, could clearly sense the exact location of the demon god's ancient tomb. However, when he thought about how the artifact spirit of the Clear Heaven Seal had brought the artifact spirit of the Heaven Refining Gourd to negotiate an alliance with the terrifying experts in the Forbidden Zone, the struggle in the artifact spirit's eyes was replaced by helplessness. He sat back down in the chaotic streams of space. Of course, the most important reason why the spirits of 3 Extinguishing and the Void Mirror's artifact spirit gave up in the end was that the Void Spirit Mouse's breakthrough this time was only in the Emperor realm. It didn't break the ironclad rules of the Heavenly Tao, and it didn't have the ability to sense the existence of the demon god's ancient tomb. With the help of the life and death soul stabilizing fruit that wasn't inferior to a St. Pill's grade and quality, as well as its own accumulation of potential that far exceeded its limits, the Void Spirit Mouse's breakthrough from the 1st to the 9th level of the Emperor Wu was exactly the same as sleeping and breathing. It easily reached the peak of the 9th level of the Emperor Wu. Merge. Sensing that 2/3 of the energy released by the life and death soul stabilizing fruit had been consumed, and the remaining 1/3 of the energy wasn't enough to quickly reach the divine beast realm, the void spirit mouse directly stretched out its short claws and began to slap its body violently as it roared at the top of its lungs. As the ethereal spirit mouse roared, the ancestral bones that had fused with its physical body began to replace its own bones. The blue sky and white clouds that had finally appeared in the mountain range were once again covered by the black clouds that were constantly converging toward it. Although the black clouds caused by the void spirit mouse's breakthrough to the divine beast realm were far less influential than that caused by Yu Haoran's breakthrough to the martial god realm, the black clouds quickly covered the entire southern region, 1/3 of the eastern region, 1/3 of the western region, and half of the central region. Such a large-scale black cloud change not only attracted the attention of the forces and experts who had just given up watching, but also alarmed the terrifying experts in the Forbidden Lands such as Whitebone City and Death Swamp, as well as the peak of the 9th level of the Supreme Realm and half-tribulation Immortal Realm experts in the Endless Void. Blue Dragon Supreme. What kind of spiritual beast is this? How could it cause such a powerful God's tribulation thunder punishment? Seeing the black clouds cover an area of tens of millions of kilometers, a peak of the one tribulation Immortal Realm expert from the Endless Void couldn't help but ask in astonishment. It's the Void Spirit Mouse that can search for rare treasures in the world and ignore all defenses and restrictions. The Azure Dragon Sovereign sighed as he looked at the black clouds that were continuously converging, at the white mouse that was continuously breaking through, at Yu Haoran who was sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak, and at the Azure Dragon Sovereign who was glaring at him with his eyes that were as large as mountains. A sliver of envy and jealousy appeared in his eyes. No wonder Yu Haoran's cultivation and strength improved so fast, and he has so many trump cards. It turns out that he has the help of the Void Spirit Mouse. So it's the Void Spirit Mouse that can search for rare treasures in the world. Hearing Blue Dragon Supreme's exclamation, not only were countless experts in the Endless Void envious, but even the terrifying experts in the Forbidden Lands of the Tianxin continent and Su Hanwen, who was standing with Thaling, also showed a hint of longing in their eyes. Chapter 2045. In a mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Scorching Sun. What should we do next? Using the destructive power of the World Annihilation chessboard, they forcibly forced the King of Hell to stop. Just as they were about to use a special artifact to trap the other party, the Spirit Mouse's sudden breakthrough to the divine beast realm attracted the God Tribulation Thunder Punishment, causing the spirits of 3 annihilations' expression to change. The Void Spirit Mouse's breakthrough to the divine beast realm was different from the Iron Rule of the Heavenly Tao. Not only did it break the Iron Rule of the Heavenly Tao, but it also disturbed the sleeping Heavenly Tao. If they didn't do anything to stop the Void Spirit Mouse's breakthrough before the Heavenly Tao was fully awakened, they would definitely be punished by the Heavenly Tao. In that case, it would definitely be punished by the Heavenly Tao, and the severity of the punishment would depend on the Void Spirit Mouse's performance during the tribulation. If the Void Spirit Mouse died in the God's Tribulation Lightning Punishment, they would only be deprived of the control of the Heavenly Tao's consciousness. If the Void Spirit Mouse successfully broke through the God's Tribulation Lightning Punishment and successfully controlled the power of the Heavenly Tao, they would most likely be killed by the Heavenly Tao. Therefore, a trace of fear emerged in her heart as she asked Scorching Sun, whose face was as gloomy as water. Scorching Sun looked at the Void Spirit Mouse in the mountain range, then at Yu Haoran sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak, and finally at the giant spirit devourer ant that was about to break through the seal of the destructive power. He couldn't help but sigh. Alas! Then he waved his sleeve and withdrew the destructive power, allowing the giant spirit devourer ant to tear the void in front of them and disappear completely from their sight. Alas! Alas! Although Scorching Sun made a wise choice in the end, Silver Moon, and Stars couldn't help but sigh when they thought of giving up the Chaos Spirit Stone and the opportunity to break through to the third tribulation immortal realm in a short time. Silver Moon, Stars, wake up the heavenly Tao's consciousness immediately and stop the Void Spirit Mouse's heaven-defying act. Scorching Sun withdrew his gaze and ordered Silver Moon and Stars after seeing the King of Hell's torn void return to normal. Then he slowly closed his eyes. Silver Moon and Stars closed their eyes and controlled the chessboard to return to the nameless valley. They then began to control the heavenly Tao's consciousness in the valley. Hao Yin, Lien Tian, returned quickly. Seeing that the Void Spirit Mouse, which had reached the peak of the 9th level of the Emperor Realm, was trying to break through to the immortal divine Beast Realm. Even though the Void Mirror Spirit was injured, it had no choice but to take the risk and return to the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. This was because only the core essence of the demon god's ancient tomb would appear on the Tianxian continent for a short period of time before the immeasurable calamity officially began. If he could take advantage of this opportunity to enter the demon god's ancient tomb alone, the final harvest wouldn't be less than the only chance to reach the immortal realm in the immeasurable calamity. Therefore, he had to stop the Void Spirit Mouse from breaking through at all costs, even if he had to sacrifice the Void Mirror's origin energy and the Mark of Chaos. However, when he thought of the time and space Victor's purple spirit, the Xin Yuan Sword Spirit, the Blood Void Beast that could control the power of the Law of Space, and Yu Haoran whose strength had reached an unknown level, the Void Mirror Spirit hurriedly sent a message to the Haotian Seal and the Heaven Refining Gourd. Although the Void Spirit Mouse had the heaven-defying ability to search for all the rare treasures in the world, which made the half-tribulation immortal realm experts in the Endless Void and the 10 Forbidden Lands envious. After the long years of the Ancient Era, the Middle Era, and the Near Ancient Era, the real rare treasures in the world had long been divided among the top and terrifying experts like them. Therefore, when the Void Spirit Mouse tried to break through to the immortal divine beast realm, they just watched with interest and didn't have the slightest intention of stopping it. When the dark clouds in the sky above the mountain range gathered to a certain extent, the dark clouds began to rumble with muffled thunders. The Void Spirit Mouse knew that the god's tribulation was about to descend, so he couldn't help but look down at Yu Haoran. "Don't worry about the god's tribulation. I'm here." When Yu Haoran sensed the nervousness in the empty Spirit Mouse's gaze, he opened his eyes and looked up with a smile to comfort it. After receiving Yu Haoran's encouragement, the Void Spirit Mouse quickly calmed down. He took a deep breath and looked at the dark clouds calmly, waiting for the first god's tribulation to descend. Since ancient times, heaven-defying spirits shouldn't have been born, but the heavens are virtuous and have given you a chance to live. The first God tribulation didn't descend immediately. Instead, a thunder-like reprimand suddenly sounded in the endless void. You should cherish this opportunity that is hard to come by, and not do something that defies the heavens and the Tao. Along with the thunder-like reprimand, a face gradually appeared under the dark clouds. It was a face full of anger. Yu Haoran suddenly stood up and directly used the law martial technique of teleportation to appear beside the Void Spirit Mouse. Then he cupped his hands and bowed to the face. Junior Yu Haoran greets the 3 seniors. When he met the Void Spirit Mouse in the cave in this life, he had seen this face in the memory crystal left behind by the Void Spirit Mouse in his previous life. He knew that this was the will of the heavens controlled by the 3 spirits. When he was accepting the reward of the god's tribulation, the 3 spirits that controlled the chessboard were not only the first terrifying experts to express their goodwill, but also took the initiative to stop the king of hell's giant spirit devouring ants for him. Yu Haoran had to thank them personally. The chosen one is right. The angry expression was instantly replaced by a warm smile. The face opened its mountain-like mouth and responded. Seniors, the Void Spirit Mouse is Junior's best friend and a brother that I rely on in life and death. I wonder if the 3 seniors can give Junior some face and not interfere with the next god's tribulation? Even under the control of the will of the heavens, the three spirits still valued the identity of the chosen one. This made Howren's eyes flash with a hint of expectation. He was hoping that the other party would be willing to temporarily let the void spirit mouse go, because they longed for the opportunity of the infinite tribulation. However, the following reply from the three spirits made his expression change. No! The smile on the face was instantly replaced by seriousness. He said in a firm tone, "Innate life forms can't become gods in defiance of the heavens. This is an iron rule that has been set since ancient times. At the same time, it's also an important reason why we gave up on pursuing the king of hell. What's more, the void spirit mouse, the head of the five spirits bred by the heavens and earth, has a 70% chance of controlling the power of the law of time when it ascends to the divine beast realm." Chapter 2046. In the mountain where the 100 Gate was located. Sizzle. After hearing the real reason for punishing the void spirit rat, whether it was the peak 9th grade supremes and half-true immortal realm experts in the endless void, the terrifying experts in the forbidden land, or the void mirror's tool spirit hidden in the void, they couldn't help but gasp. Fate couldn't be controlled, and time couldn't be controlled. This was an iron rule passed down since ancient times. Unexpectedly, Howren's spiritual beast, the void spirit mouse, had the potential to break the iron rule and control the power of time rule. How could this not shock countless experts at the scene? However, even though they were shocked, if the void spirit mouse could control the power of time rule, the first one to be challenged and threatened would be the rule of heaven, which regarded all creatures as dogs. It would be the biggest obstacle for them to break through to the immortal realm. If the void spirit mouse, who could control the power of time rule, could attract more than half of the rule of heaven's energy, it would be absolutely beneficial for these terrifying experts who had the potential to break through to the immortal realm. Therefore, the half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void and the forbidden area didn't want to destroy the void spirit mouse's tribulation thunder. Instead, they were considering whether to help him resist the attack of the heavens consciousness. Scorching sun, isn't it too risky? While controlling the heavens consciousness, he could clearly feel the emotional changes of the half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void and the forbidden area. Seeing that the half-tribulation immortal experts suddenly had a strong hostility toward them, Vastar, who had just reached the supreme realm, asked Scorching Sun in a panic. "We don't want to offend the Son of Heaven and affect the opportunity in the immeasurable calamity, and we can't arouse the suspicion of the rule of heaven and avoid the unbearable punishment. If we don't take some fatal risks, how can we succeed?" Scorching Sun raised his head and looked at the thick and oppressive black clouds, then smiled confidently. "Senior, I made it clear just now that the Void Spirit Mouse is my sworn brother. If you don't want to let it go, then I have no choice but to offend you." Howren could vaguely hear the helplessness in Scorching Sun's voice. He guessed that Scorching Sun might also be under the surveillance and threat of the rule of heaven. Therefore, before he decided to deal with the heavens consciousness, he had to express his difficulties in order to avoid the irreconcilable hatred between them. "Son of Heaven, why do you have to do this?" The human face controlled by Burning Sun sighed and immediately mobilized a terrifying power of destruction through the will of heaven, preparing to attack Howren and the Void Spirit Mouse. Howren, on the other hand, used the spatial law martial technique of teleportation to return to the array formation in the mountain range. He planned to join forces with everyone to fight against the will of the heavens. However, at this moment, from the endless void and the 7 forbidden lands of the Tianxian land, a dozen terrifying powers that could shake the stars suddenly blasted out. Although he did not know why the terrifying experts in the endless void and forbidden grounds would attack the consciousness of the heavens controlled by the spirits of triple annihilation, this was a great opportunity for him and the empty spirit mouse. Damn it! Originally, the will of the heavens could have personally stopped the void spirit mouse from breaking through and let the artifact spirit of the void mirror know that even if it didn't do anything, it could still continue to enjoy the secrets of the demon god's tomb. However, as the terrifying experts from the endless void and the seven forbidden lands attacked, the will of the heavens controlled by the spirits of triple annihilation would definitely not be a match for them. Therefore, not only did he have to fight with all his might, but he also had to think of a way to make the Hautian seal and the heaven refining flask fight with all their might. How could he not be furious? We have to injure both our physical body and divine soul at the same time to prevent the heavenly way from discovering our intentions. At the same time, we have to avoid harming our origin. Seeing the terrifying experts from the endless void and the seven forbidden lands attacking at the same time, Burning Sun's eyes flashed with joy. He immediately activated the strongest defense of the chessboard and the will of the heavens. He also hurriedly used his divine thought to inform Silvermoon and Fanching of what to pay attention to. Silvermoon and Fanching nodded silently. They immediately separated half of their divine power and soul power into the will of the heavens, preparing to withstand the joint attack of the terrifying experts. At the same time, they poured the rest of their divine power and soul power into the chessboard, striving to protect the origin of the spirit annihilation physique. Even Su Hanwon, who was at the early stage of the third tribulation, had no confidence in resisting the joint attack of the terrifying experts, let alone the will of the heavens, which was only at the second tribulation of the immortal realm. Therefore, when the joint attack of the terrifying experts hit the giant face condensed by the will of the heavens, the parts above the lips were directly blasted into powder and drifted into the mountains like sand. Star transposition, heaven's mansion suppression. When the tower spirits saw the face formed by the will of the heavens shatter into powder and fall to the ground, a look of pleasant surprise flashed across its face. It immediately formed a seal with its 10 fingers to activate the formation that connected the mountain and the residence. The powder that fell to the ground fused into the residence. As the powder of the will of the heavens was blasted into the mansion, the innate spiritual chi that filled the mansion suddenly had a trace of special meaning. Under the influence of their physiques, the 4 flood dragons, who were at the peak of the 9th level of the Spirit Emperor realm at most, had the physique to reach the peak of the divine beast realm after being nourished by the innate spiritual chi and the innate spiritual chi. Now, after secretly absorbing the innate spiritual chi, not only did they break through the limits of their physiques and have the potential to break through to the supreme realm, but their cultivation also rose to the peak of the 9th grade martial emperor realm in a very short period of time. Fowling, what's going on? Yu Haoran couldn't help but ask in surprise after scanning the 4 flood dragons who were secretly absorbing the innate spiritual chi with his divine sense. The 3 spirits of annihilation are formed by the power of destruction after the destruction of heaven and earth. The will of the heavens is formed by the essence of heaven and earth after the destruction of heaven and earth. Seeing that Fowling was still collecting the powder of the will of the heavens through the formation, Su Hanwon, who knew what was going on, took the initiative to explain. The innate spiritual chi that blends with the essence of heaven and earth can not only greatly improve the physique of living creatures, but also enhance their own talent and potential. At the same time, it can also enhance their comprehension and control of the law. Therefore, the effect of the innate spiritual chi that blends with the essence of heaven and earth is not inferior to a divine pill of the 9th level of the 1st level. I see. Chapter 2047. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, Jory hurriedly asked. Although his body and soul had been severely injured after a dozen terrifying attacks, his spirit extinguisher physique had not been harmed. Silver Moon, Fanching, are you all right? My spirit extinguisher physique's origin is slightly damaged, but with the help of a saint pill, I can recover in half a month. Silver Moon replied with a sigh of relief after quickly checking her own condition. 1/3 of my spirit extinguisher physique's origin has been directly destroyed. Even with the help of a saint pill, I'm afraid it'll take me around a year to recover, Fanqing said with a bitter smile. I'm fine. Although Fanqing's spirit extinguisher physique's origin had been damaged beyond Zhuori's expectations, he immediately thought of a method to help Fanqing recover in a short time when he thought of the heavenly Tao that controlled half of the origin of destruction. Therefore, after comforting Fanqing, Zhuori immediately used a special method to inform the heavenly Tao of what they had just encountered in his own condition in detail. Then, he returned to the nameless valley with the broken consciousness of the heavens. The moment the three spirits of annihilation left the mountain range with the consciousness of the heavens, the first God's tribulation, lightning, immediately descended from the black clouds that had accumulated lightning energy to the limit. It was a golden lightning bolt, as thick as a finger. Faced with the golden lightning bolt, the Void Spirit Mouse immediately used the complete version of the devouring technique that Yu Haoran had taught him. It then opened its mouth and began to forcibly devour the golden lightning bolt that contained pure lightning energy. The pure lightning energy, combined with the ancestral bones in its body, allowed the Void Spirit Mouse to smoothly ascend to the immortal divine beast realm. It also vaguely unlocked a potential in its bloodline. However, with the second God's tribulation lightning about to descend and the pure lightning energy in its body that had yet to be completely refined, the Void Spirit Mouse did not have the time or energy to check what the potential of its bloodline was. The second God's tribulation lightning descended from the black clouds. It was still golden lightning, but it had grown from the size of finger to the size of an arm. Its power had also increased tenfold. Using the complete version of the devouring technique, it easily devoured the golden lightning bolt that was as thick as an arm and used the pure lightning energy to raise its cultivation to the peak of the first rank of the God realm. The third, fourth, fifth, and sixth bolts of God's tribulation lightning were all golden bolts of lightning. Furthermore, the power of each golden bolt of lightning was only 10 times that of the previous one. Not only did this allow the empty spirit mouse to easily pass through the first 6 God tribulation lightning punishments with a complete version of the great devouring technique, but it also raised its cultivation level to the peak of the 3rd level of the God realm. Logically speaking, the simpler the form of the God's tribulation, the greater the chance of surviving it. However, seeing the empty spirit mouse, the head of the 5 spirits, and the first 6 God's tribulation were just the simplest golden lightning bolts, Yu Haoran felt a little uneasy. He had a feeling that the form and power of the last 3 lightning tribulations would not lose out to the primal chaos chi and his mirror image that he had encountered. Boom! However, Yu Haoran couldn't help but frown when he saw the 7th bolt of God tribulation lightning. This was because the form of the 7th bolt of God's tribulation lightning was still golden lightning, and its power was only 20 times that of the 6th bolt of lightning. Yu Haoran was sure that his 6th sense wouldn't be wrong. He believed that the empty spirit mouse's God's tribulation lightning punishments couldn't be so simple. Therefore, after giving some instructions to Thaling and Su Hanwan, he flashed back to the cultivation room in the prince's mansion. Back then, in order to completely conceal the empty spirit mouse's aura and prevent it from being discovered by the heavenly Tao and the terrifying experts in the Forbidden Grounds, Thaling and Xin Yuan Sword used the energy in their bodies to set up a ceiling formation that covered the sky. Later, after his own God's tribulation lightning punishments, the heavenly Tao, and the arrival of 15 terrifying experts, the ceiling formation's ability to conceal aura was fully verified. Sitting cross-legged in the cultivation room, he activated the karma law that he had just comprehended and fused, and found the karma chain that belonged to the empty spirit mouse. Then, his mind followed the chain to find the fatal danger that the empty spirit mouse had encountered in its life. Finally, at the end of the chain, he felt the aura of the heavenly Tao. However, compared to the cold aura of the heavenly Tao that was usually released by the heavenly Tao's single eye, the aura of the heavenly Tao at the end of the chain had a trace of anger and fear. Waving his hand, Yu Haoran dispersed the karma chain that appeared above his head and calmed the karma law that was boiling in the space of his sea of consciousness. He frowned slightly and fell into deep thought. According to the introduction of the empty spirit mouse by 3 extinguishing spirits, the empty spirit mouse that had reached the divine beast realm, after mastering the time law, would transcend the restrictions of the heavenly Tao and the fate law and become an existence that wasn't inferior to the immortal realm. In that case, the heavenly Tao, which already had self-awareness, should only feel very angry. Then why would it feel fear? Unless the empty spirit mouse that had mastered the time law had the strength and means to harm and destroy the heavenly Tao. However, after enduring the punishment of the heavenly Tao's single eye during the God Tribulation Thunder punishment, he knew that the heavenly Tao that was about to reach perfection already had the strength of the third tribulation immortal realm. Given the speed of the empty spirit mouse's advancement, it probably wouldn't have the strength to harm the heavenly Tao before the end of the infinite tribulation. Slowly closing his eyes, he recalled every sentence and word of the empty spirit mouse that 3 extinguishing spirits had just introduced. Finally, his attention stopped on a sentence that traveled through the long river of history. Traveling through the long river of history meant that it could return to the past. If the empty spirit mouse could reach the half-tribulation immortal realm and return to the time when the ancient times were destroyed, would it be able to damage and destroy the weak heavenly Tao? No. Then, Yu Haoran directly overturned his previous conjecture. If the heavenly Tao after the destruction of the ancient times was severely damaged or directly destroyed, then the entire course of history would be completely rewritten. All the creatures that appeared after the destruction of the ancient times would disappear. This was completely against the course of the heavenly Tao. Unless the empty spirit mouse returned to a specific time and destroyed something that shouldn't have appeared. Yu Haoran suddenly opened his eyes, and a look of joy flashed through his eyes. He found that he had found the fatal weakness of the heavenly Tao. With the fatal weakness that he had just grasped, not only could he help the empty spirit mouse pass the divine tribulation with ease, but he could also refine the Destiny Stone Tablet without any worries, and have a chance to fight for a trace of fortune in the immeasurable calamity. After taking a deep breath and calming down, Yu Haoran instantly returned to Thaling and Su Hanwen's side. Chapter 2048. In a mountain where the 100 Chi Gate was located, not only did Yu Haoran seem extremely relaxed, but he also had a very confident smile on his face. This made the tower spirit feel quite confused, so he asked, "Yu Haoran, what happened?" "Thaling, it's nothing." After shaking his head at Thaling, Yu Haoran immediately used his divine thought to inform the Blood-Hollow Beast and Yusiki, who were hiding in the mountain, to return to the prince's mansion and try their best to absorb the innate spiritual chi in the mansion, which had been integrated with the essence of heaven and earth, so that they could achieve a transformation in their cultivation and strength within 3 days. Then, he looked up at the spirit-devouring mouse, who had used the secret devouring skill to devour the 8th golden lightning bolt, with a hint of expectation in his eyes. Although the 8th golden lightning bolt was 30 times more powerful than the 7th golden lightning bolt, in the face of the void spirit mouse that had reached the peak of the 3rd level of the God realm, it could only become the source of power for him to reach the early and middle stages of the 4th level of the God realm. Boom! Before the spirit-devouring mouse could completely absorb the 8th golden lightning bolt, the 9th golden lightning bolt of the divine tribulation thunder immediately came down from the dark clouds. Something's wrong. At this moment, when they saw that the spirit-devouring mouse's 9th divine tribulation thunder were all golden lightning bolts, whether it was the peak of the 9th level of the supreme realm or the half-tribulation immortal realm in the endless void, the terrifying experts in the forbidden area, Thaling and Su Hanwen, or the void mirror hidden in the void, all realized that something was wrong. After all, as the head of the 5 spirits born from the heavens and earth, an existence that even the heavenly Tao feared, the might of the void spirit mouse's divine tribulation lightning punishment was definitely greater than that of most living beings, even if it was not as powerful as Yuhaoran, the child of destiny. But the result was. Therefore, even though the spirit-devouring mouse had successfully devoured the last golden lightning bolt with the help of his cultivation and a complete version of the secret devouring skill, everyone present felt very powerful. They felt that the spirit-devouring mouse's divine tribulation thunder was not really over, and that the next divine tribulation would decide his life and death. And the void mirror hidden in the void even prayed secretly, praying that the 10th divine tribulation thunder would completely destroy the spirit-devouring mouse. And the development of the situation was just as they thought. Just as the spirit-devouring mouse devoured the 9th golden lightning bolt, before he could really refine and absorb it, the dark clouds that had just calmed down suddenly began to churn violently, and golden and purple lightning bolts began to gather in the dark clouds. Looking at the golden and purple lightning gathering in the dark clouds, the void spirit mouse suddenly recalled the scene from the memory crystal. It had basically guessed the form of the last lightning tribulation. This made him feel extremely nervous, and at the same time, an uncontrollable instinctive fear emerged. The spirit-devouring mouse's heart, spirit-devouring mouses, and spirit-devouring mouse, along with the spirit-devouring soul's spiritual sea space, uncontrolled, devouring soul, devouring mouse, inner demon backlash, divine power and soul power boiled violently, causing the void spirit mouse's aura to become chaotic, which immediately attracted Yuhaoran's attention. His divine sense forcibly entered the void spirit mouse's body and immediately discovered the transparent flame in his heart space. He immediately knew that he had suffered a backlash from his heart demon. At the same time, Yuhaoran could also guess the reason why he suffered the backlash of his inner demon. Without the slightest hesitation, his divine sense continued to forcibly tear apart the defense of his knowledge sea, and then shouted at the empty spirit mouse, who still maintained a trace of consciousness. Little Kong, all you need to do now is to calm your chi and concentrate, then refine and absorb the pure lightning energy in your body. Leave the rest to me. Perhaps it was because of Yuhaoran's powerful promise, or perhaps it was because of its subconscious trust and dependence on him. But the ethereal spirit mouse's nervousness and fear gradually calmed down. The transparent flame in its heart slowly extinguished, and the violently boiling divine power and soul power also calmed down. Fouling, Senior Sue, no matter what happens next, you are not allowed to help me. After the void spirit mouse had temporarily resolved the crisis of his inner demon backlash, Yuhaoran turned to Thaling and Su Hanwen and solemnly requested, "Young friend Yu. Originally, Su Hanwen wanted to ask Yuhaoran what he wanted to do, but Thaling, who had a mysterious smile on his face, stopped him. Based on the void spirit mouse's actions of refining and absorbing the golden lightning energy in its body, and then combined with Yuhaoran's confidence after his brief return to the prince's mansion, Thaling could basically guess what he wanted to do next. At the same time, after several years of knowing each other, he knew that since Yuhaoran dared to do this, he must have absolute confidence. Therefore, Thaling finally chose to respect his decision. Seeing Thaling, who stopped Su Hanwen from asking him, had already guessed his next intention, Yuhaoran smiled at him with relief, and then stepped on the void towards the void spirit mouse step by step. What is the Chosen One doing? Although he dragged his heavily injured body back to the nameless valley, it did not mean that Zhuori did not pay attention to the void spirit mouse's God's tribulation lightning punishment. At the same time, as the person who had the closest relationship with the heavenly Tao, Zhuori knew the form of the void spirit mouse's last God's tribulation lightning punishment. So when he saw Yuhaoran walking towards the void spirit mouse, his heart was full of doubts. In fact, Yuhaoran's sudden move towards the void spirit mouse not only confused Zhuori, but also the hundreds of experts in the endless void and the forbidden area. After all, rashly approaching the void spirit mouse was very likely to be regarded as a provocation to the heavenly Tao, and it was very easy to attract the punishment of the god's tribulation, lightning punishment. Stepping on the void in front of the void spirit mouse, Howard stopped in his tracks and looked at it. When he found that the fire in his heart space had been completely extinguished, and that his divine power and soul power were under the control of the void spirit mouse, he nodded with great satisfaction. Then, he looked up at the black clouds that were still violently churning, and after a confident smile appeared on his face, he continued to step on the void towards the black clouds. As if sensing Howard's approach and provocation, the golden and purple lightning that were constantly gathering in the black clouds seemed to immediately give up on condensing and intended to take the initiative to attack him. Don't be impulsive. I want to have a good talk with you. Chapter 2049. In the void of the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Boom! However, in response to Howard's request, a bolt of lightning that was a combination of gold and purple and had the power of a peak 9th grade supreme martial artist immediately struck down from the black clouds. The fairy-slaying sword that was summoned by Howard's mind quickly left the mountain array and instantly appeared in his hand. Then, he used the inherited sword technique from the Destiny Stone tablet to directly disperse the combined gold and purple lightning. Then, he threw the fairy-slaying sword back to the mountain range, shrugged his shoulders, and said with a very sincere attitude, "I have no ill intentions, nor do I have the slightest intention to provoke you. I just want to talk to you about a certain point in time in the long river of history." The second bolt of lightning that was combined with gold and purple suddenly stopped the moment it left the black clouds. After staying there for 30 seconds, the golden and purple lightning slowly dissipated. In response, Howard smiled faintly and continued to walk into the black clouds. At the same time, all the gold and purple lightning in the black clouds quickly condensed into an emotionless single eye. Rules of Heaven Way. My request is very simple. Howard went straight to the point as he looked at the single eye condensed from the dark clouds. First, immediately end the divine tribulation thunder punishment of the empty spirit mouse, and then give him a thunder punishment reward that can help him reach the peak of 9th grade divine realm. Second, in the future, no matter what Howard, want to do or plan to do, you are not allowed to meddle in other people's business, and you are not allowed to punish me in a high and mighty manner. After hearing Howard's 2 direct requests, the single eye condensed by the rules of Heaven Way immediately burned with angry flames, and there was a strong murderous intent that wanted to completely destroy Howard. In response, Howard ignored it and continued. Rules of Heaven Way. As long as you can agree to the 2 requests I just made, then Howard, can also give you 2 promises now. Firstly, the Void Spirit Mouse will definitely not use the power of the laws of time that he controls to return to the point in the river of history where you truly appeared. He will not pose any fatal threat to you. Second, as the Son of Destiny, I will give you the destiny of so many dead creatures in the immeasurable Culpa, which will give you a chance to reach the immortal realm. After hearing Howard's 2 promises, the flames of anger in the one-eyed man's eyes began to extinguish, and the intense killing intent gradually disappeared. Seeing that the heavenly Tao was finally interested in the promise he had made, Howard, who appeared to be very calm on the surface, finally calmed down from the nervousness in his throat. When the raging flames and intense killing intent completely disappeared, the eye that was looking at Howard suddenly spat out a purple lightning bolt that contained a special message and directly blasted towards the space between his eyebrows. In response, Howard neither dodged nor resisted, allowing the purple lightning to strike between his eyebrows. There was no sound, and it did not bring any harm to Howard. The purple lightning directly merged with his soul in the knowledge sea space. Slowly closing his eyes, Howard began to quickly read the message contained in the purple lightning. A minute later, Howard suddenly opened his eyes, and after a look of incomparable shock flashed through his eyes, he nodded and promised to the one-eyed man condensed by the rules of Heaven Way. Seeing that you have provided such an important secret, I will find a way to help you deal with them in the immeasurable culpa. If the time permits, I will even personally slaughter them." After receiving Yuhauran's promise, the originally emotionless one-eyed man flashed a look of joy and began to slowly dissipate. However, at the moment when the one-eyed man completely disappeared, all the purple lightning that reappeared in the black clouds quickly condensed into two pure purple divine dragons, and then rushed into Yuhauran's Dantian and Knowledge sea space, respectively. Thank you. After carefully feeling the concentration and purity of the energy contained in the two purple divine dragons that merged into the Dantian and Knowledge sea space, Yuhauran's eyes flashed with a look of joy, and he cupped his hands and thanked the rules of Heaven Way that had completely disappeared. Immediately afterward, he directly turned and left the black clouds. Looking at Yuhauran, who left the black clouds safe and sound, the eyes of the people at the scene revealed even more confusion. At the same time, the blue dragon supreme in the endless void could not help but change his expression. This was because, having understood the truth of the rules of Heaven Way, he seriously suspected that, as the chosen one, Yuhauran had already reached some sort of win-win plan with the rules of Heaven Way. In fact, the win-win plan they had reached even included how to destroy the 4 guardian clans and how to kill the 4 divine beasts. Therefore, the blue dragon supreme, whose eyes were surging with intense killing intent, began to plan how to completely kill Yuhauran before the immeasurable culpa officially began. Seeing Yuhauran safely leave the black clouds, and seeing the boiling lightning in the black clouds gradually calm down, the Void Mirror's artifact spirit hidden in the void immediately became so gloomy that it seemed as if water could drip from it. When the Hao Tian seal and the Heaven Refining Pot received his message, they used the reason that they were about to form an alliance with the terrifying experts of the Forbidden Grounds. Not only were they not willing to come help, they even asked him not to provoke Yuhauran and the Tower Spirit. This made the Void Realm artifact spirit know that the Hao Tian seal had completely abandoned him. Although he did not know why the Hao Tian seal suddenly did such a stupid thing as destroying its own foundation, the Void Mirror's artifact spirit knew that, with his cultivation only at the peak of the 9th grade supreme, he had no ability to stop the Void Spirit Mouse from becoming a divine beast. Therefore, he pinned all his hopes on the rules of Heaven Way, which would absolutely not allow the Void Spirit Mouse to become a divine beast. Now, Yuhauran safely left the black clouds, which meant that he had already reached an agreement with the rules of Heaven Way, which completely destroyed the hope of stopping the Void Spirit Mouse from becoming a divine beast. Therefore, the gloomy Void Mirror now had to consider whether he should continue to guard the secret of the demon god's ancient tomb alone, or spread the news and cause chaos, and then take advantage of the chaos to profit from it. After turning around and leaving the black clouds, Yuhauran returned to the Void Spirit Mouse's side, and then used his divine sense to instruct him. Your God's tribulation lightning punishment has completely ended. Next, use the rewards of the God's tribulation lightning punishment to increase your cultivation and strength as much as possible. Yuhauran, thank you. The Void Spirit Mouse opened its eyes, revealing a grateful expression as it solemnly expressed its gratitude. Little Void, there's no need to be so polite between us brothers. After waving his hand to signal the Void Spirit Mouse not to be so polite, Yuhauran took out some divine pills and gave them to him, and continued to instruct him. Chapter 2050. In a mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located. Got it. For the Void Spirit Mouse, he was not afraid of risking his life to accompany Yuhauran. He was only afraid of being ignored and not being able to help. Now, when he heard that Yuhauran asked him to accompany him to kill someone, the Void Spirit Mouse immediately nodded excitedly. At the same time, he hurried to absorb the thunder energy in his body. After the Void Spirit Mouse put away the elixir used to consolidate his realm, Yuhauran immediately ordered Thaling and Su Hanwan with his divine thought. Senior Su, help me and Thaling kill an enemy. Void Mirror. The only person who had a grudge against him and Yuhauran at the same time, except for Xing Tian Supreme, who bit the hand that fed him, was the Void Mirror's device spirit, who coveted the Void Spirit Mouse. No problem. When helping Yu Haoran deal with the 9 terrifying experts in the sea area, they had already reached an alliance. Therefore, Su Hanwen did not ask who the target was at all and directly nodded in agreement. After nodding to Thaling to indicate that the opponent to be killed was the device spirit of the Void Mirror, Yu Haoran continued to order with his divine thought. Thaling, you go to the east of the mountain range. Senior Su, you go to the north of the mountain range. After instructing Thaling and Su Hanwen to guard their positions, Yu Haoran immediately used his divine thought to enter the prince's mansion, and then found the device spirit of the Xianyuan sword in Lu Yuan's Sea of Consciousness. Senior Xianyuan, please take your body to the south of the mountain range. Okay. After nodding in response, the device spirit of the Xianyuan sword immediately appeared in the south of the mountain range. After Thaling, Su Hanwen, and the device spirit of the Xianyuan sword took their positions, Yu Haoran instantly arrived in the west of the mountain range with the spatial law martial technique of teleportation. Then, he stretched out his hand and shouted to the depths of the mountain range. Sword formation, rise. Accompanied by Yu Haoran's shout, for streams of sword chi that were filled with terror, blood, malice, and sharpness immediately surged out from the depths of the mountain range. When the 4 sharp sword chis rose into the air above the mountain range, under the control of Yu Haoran's 10 fingers, they quickly formed a sword net that covered the entire mountain range. The sword net directly enveloped the Void Spirit Mouse, who was refining the lightning energy in its body, as well as the Void Mirror's artifact spirit, which was hidden in the void of the mountain range. However, the artifact spirit of the Void Mirror, who was blindly confident in its own concealment ability, did not believe that Yu Haoran could discover its traces. As a result, even though he was enveloped by the sword net, he didn't panic at all. Moreover, he didn't plan on escaping immediately. He continued to consider whether or not to keep the secret of the demon god's tomb. Withdraw. After the sharp sword chi formed the sword net, Yu Haoran, who had formed the last seal, shouted as he merged the seal into the sword net. Along with Yu Haoran's shout, the sword net that covered the entire mountain range began to shrink rapidly from the center of the mountain range, which was the new location of the 100 Chi Gate. This made the artifact spirit of the Void Mirror, which was about 30 miles away from the center of the mountain range, feel more at ease. As the sword net shrank rapidly, Yu Haoran secretly used the profound law of space to merge into the sword net. Then, he carefully sensed the energy fluctuations in every inch of the void. In fact, the reality was just as the artifact spirit of the Void Mirror had imagined. Whether it was Yu Haoran, who had comprehended the profound law of space, or Su Hanwen, who had reached the early stage of the 3rd tribulation immortal realm, neither of them discovered the anomaly in the void of the mountain range. However, after reaching a win-win agreement with the law of heaven, the law of heaven had given him the purple divine lightning that contained some secret information. It had specifically mentioned the artifact spirit of the Void Mirror that was hidden in the void. This had made Yu Haoran decide to kill the artifact spirit of the Void Mirror on the spot. After all, not only did he have an irreconcilable enmity with the artifact spirit of the Void Mirror, but the artifact spirit also had the chaos imprint of the Bell of Chaos. The sword net shrank to tens of thousands of miles, but there was no harvest. The sword net shrank to thousands of miles, but there was still no harvest. The sword net shrank to hundreds of miles, but there was still no harvest. This made Yu Haoran feel a little irritated. He couldn't help but doubt the authenticity of the information provided by the law of heaven. However, when the sword net shrank to less than 30 miles, Yu Haoran vaguely felt a trace of spatial energy fluctuation. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. Continuing to control the speed of the sword net to avoid alerting the artifact spirit of the Void Mirror, Yu Haoran hurriedly used his divine thought to inform Thaling, Su Hanwen, and Xianyuan about the next method and the location of the attack. Then, Yu Haoran took a deep breath and began to adjust himself to his peak state. Sword come. When he had reached his peak state and the sword net had completely dispersed, Yu Haoran roared toward the depths of the mountain range under his feet. Then, the immortal ending sword that was refining the level 1 high-grade, divine vein on its own soared into the sky and appeared in Yu Haoran's hand. Sword come! Sword come! Sword come! Just as Yu Haoran roared, Thaling, Su Hanwen, and Xian Yuan's artifact spirits roared at the same time, accompanied by 3 thunderous roars that resounded through the sky. The immortal killing sword instantly appeared in the hands of Thaling, who was guarding the east of the mountain range. The immortal trapping sword instantly appeared in the hands of Xian Yuan, who was guarding the south of the mountain range. The most powerful immortal killing sword instantly appeared in the hands of Su Hanwen, who was guarding the north of the mountain range. Absolute kill. Yu Haoran, who had fully activated the immortal ending sword's power, performed the immortal killing sword technique that Thaling had taught him temporarily and was created by Tong Tian Supreme according to the characteristics of the immortal killing 4 swords. Slaughter. Trap. Slaughter. At the same time, Thaling, Xian Yuan, and Su Hanwen performed the same immortal killing sword technique at the same time. Originally, the Void Mirror's artifact spirit was still wondering why Yu Haoran and the others would use the immortal killing 4 swords, which had reached the half-tribulation immortal realm, when there was no enemy. However, when he sensed that the immortal killing sword technique performed by Yu Haoran, Thaling, Xian Yuan, and Su Hanwen had instantly locked onto his position, he immediately knew that his concealment method had already lost its effect. The sword formation that Yu Haoran had activated and the way it shrank was just a method to lock onto and confuse him. However, the Void Mirror's artifact spirit was very confident in his escape method, so he didn't panic at all when facing the 4 terrifying sword chi. Damn brat. Truly cunning. After cursing inwardly, the Void Mirror immediately mobilized the rule of space in its main body and performed the space-time travel method, intending to dodge the terrifying sword chi that had reached the half-tribulation immortal realm. However, when he sensed that the space around him had been completely sealed by the 4 terrifying strands of sword chi, his face could not help but change. Chapter 2051. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located, among the 4 sword chi in the confinement mountain range, the weakest sword chi was at the early stage of the immortal realm. The most powerful sword chi even reached the early stage of the 3rd calamity, immortal realm. Even if the Void Mirror's origin of space was exhausted, it could not break through the confinement of the void and escape, nor could it resist the attack of the 4 sword chi. Therefore, the Void Mirror's device spirit, who had left the void, hurriedly surrendered to Yu Haoran and Thaling. However, in the face of the Void Mirror's surrender, Yu Haoran and the Pagoda spirit showed no mercy. Instead, they used their spiritual sense to increase the speed of the sword chi's attack. Boom! 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 With 4 deafening booms, Yu Haoran and Thaling's sword chi blasted the Void Mirror's device spirit into powder. Then, Xuanyuan's device spirit and Su Hanwen's sword chi blasted a crack in the innate treasure Void Mirror. Without any delay or hesitation, Yu Haoran appeared in front of the Void Mirror with the space law martial technique of instant movement. Then, he quickly sealed the Void Mirror with his 10 fingers. After all, compared to the artifact spirits of the other 6 innate cardinal treasures, the artifact spirit of the Void Mirror was not only sly and cunning, but also cautious. No one could be sure that he did not leave a resurrection method in the Void Mirror. After handing the sealed Void Mirror to Xuanyuan's device spirit, Yu Haoran said solemnly, "Senior Xian Yuan, in the next 3 days, I'll have to trouble you to find a way to remove all the hidden dangers in the Void Mirror. Don't worry." Xuanyuan's artifact spirit solemnly promised after reaching out to take the sealed Void Mirror. Whether it's the quality of my body or the device spirit's cultivation, I have to be far stronger than the device spirit. I have to ensure that I can remove all the hidden dangers in the Void Mirror and find Brother Chaos imprint. Thank you for your hard work. After nodding and thanking him, Yuhauran turned around and instructed Thaling and Su Hanwen. Thaling, Senior Su, I'll have to trouble you to continue protecting Little Kong. I'll return to the cultivation room in the mansion first. Go quickly. He could feel that there were two enormous flows of pure energy in Yuhauran's Dantian and Sea of Consciousness. He could vaguely guess the source of these two flows of pure energy and hurriedly signaled him to hurry up and cultivate. Violet's spirit, forming an alliance with the heavenly Tao, is no different from asking a tiger for its skin. Shouldn't you advise little friend you? Su Hanwan, who hadn't expressed his thoughts this entire time, reminded the pagoda spirit with a grave expression after Yuhauran returned to the cultivation room in the prince consort's residence. No need. After shaking his head to indicate that there was no need to persuade Yuhauran, Thaling whispered through divine thought. Because Yuhauran has already integrated 13 types of auxiliary power of law 3 hours ago, and successfully comprehended the power of the law of cause and effect that can restrain the law of fate, which means that he can guard against any means of the heavenly Tao in advance. Violet Spirit, are you sure? Su Hanwan, whose expression was slightly shocked, asked with a slightly trembling voice. In this regard, Thaling smiled slightly and did not say anything more. He just looked up at the empty spirit mouse that was receiving the reward of the divine tribulation thunder punishment. In the underground of a mountain range at the junction of the central region and the northern region, the giant spirit devouring ant that was lucky enough to escape the pursuit of the 3 spirits of annihilation was crawling in a huge pool filled with milky white energy. Damn it. In order to resist those old guys in the forbidden area, even the 3 destructive powers that I exchanged with the heavenly Tao have been used up. Looking at the 3 tokens in his hand that had completely lost their luster, the giant spirit devouring ant in the pool gritted his teeth and muttered to himself. Now, in the situation where I have lost my life-saving means, it seems that I can only temporarily hide for a period of time and then wait for the immeasurable calamity to come out again. After muttering to himself, the giant spirit devouring ant casually threw the abandoned tokens in his hand aside, then closed his eyes to absorb the spiritual liquid transformed by the rich innate spiritual energy to recover the damage that Yuhauran and the 3 spirits of annihilation had caused to his body and divine soul. And at a position 1 meter away from the pool stood the first doppelganger whose aura was becoming more and more ethereal. At this time, the first doppelganger was not hiding in the void under the ground, nor did he deliberately conceal his aura. He just stood casually beside the pool. At this moment, the giant spirit devouring ant that was still on high alert did not notice the existence of the first doppelganger at all. 5 chaos spirit stones, 1 for the main body, 1 for the 2 doppelganger, 1 for Elder Pagoda, and the remaining 1 is used to construct the 6 paths of reincarnation. Looking at the giant spirit devouring ant in the pool, the first doppelganger first put away the abandoned tokens that he had thrown aside, then muttered to himself to distribute the chaos spirit stones in the king of hell's body. Then, the first doppelganger slowly flew to the back of the giant spirit devouring ant, then stretched out his finger and gently cut the ant's back. The wound that had been repaired with great difficulty with his divine power and soul power was cut open again. Then, the first doppelganger condensed a giant palm with his divine power and directly took out the 5 chaos spirit stones that were the size of wash basins. When the giant spirit devouring ant felt a great pain on its back, the 5 chaos spirit stones that had spent hundreds of millions of years to cultivate were already in the hands of the first doppelganger. Damn, brat, quickly return the chaos spirit stones to me. The giant spirit devouring ant quickly rushed out of the pool and looked at Yuhauran, who was leisurely putting away the 5 chaos spirit stones, and couldn't help but roar in anger. Facing the giant spirit devouring ant's roar, the first doppelganger said indifferently, "Even when you were at your peak, you couldn't do anything to me. let alone now that your cultivation base and strength have fallen to the early stage of the one tribulation immortal realm. After hearing the first doppelganger's reminder, the giant spirit devouring ant remembered that the 5 chaos spirit stones that it had refined into a part of its body contained nearly 70% of its comprehension and 60% of its life essence. Losing the 5 chaos spirit stones meant that it had lost its terrifying cultivation base and strength. It had completely degenerated into an ordinary demonic beast. Thinking of this, the giant spirit devouring ant's heart was filled with endless fear. It wanted to take back the 5 chaos spirit stones that it had lost, but it was also afraid of death. After all, the strength that Howard had displayed in front of it was at least 100 times or even 1,000 times stronger than when it had just passed the God Tribulation lightning punishment. King of Hell, I know that your Hell organization has successfully refined the foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation with the help of countless vengeful souls from the ancient era, middle era, and recent era. After putting away the 5 chaos spirit stones, the first doppelganger took a step forward and stood directly on the giant spirit devouring ant's head. Chapter 2052. Beneath the mountain range between the central and north regions. How did you know about the foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation? Ever since the ancient monster race ruled the continent, the giant spirit devouring ant had the idea of opening up hell and rebuilding the 6 paths of reincarnation. Of course, opening up hell and rebuilding the reincarnation cycle wasn't because the giant spirit devouring ant was merciful, nor was it because he cared about the suffering of all living beings. He just wanted to control the souls of all living beings after they died and become the true ruler of the world. He wanted to be on equal footing with the heavenly Tao. After countless years of arduous cultivation in the ancient, middle, and recent ages, he had successfully comprehended the Azura Tao, Animal Tao, and Hungry Ghost Tao of the 6 paths of reincarnation. At the same time, with the help of the Hell organization that he had established and carefully cultivated, he had collected countless heaven-defying treasures and successfully refined the foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation. As long as he could successfully comprehend the remaining heavenly Tao and human Tao of the 6 paths of reincarnation, and then forcefully integrate the 6 paths of reincarnation into the foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation, he would be able to open up hell and rebuild the 6 paths of reincarnation. However, opening up hell and rebuilding the 6 paths of reincarnation was equivalent to fighting with the heavenly Tao for the control of heaven and earth. It was a heaven-defying act and would definitely be obstructed and punished by the heavenly Tao. Therefore, the giant spirit devouring ant had never revealed the power of laws he had comprehended to anyone, including the few confidants in the Hell organization that he had carefully cultivated. Even when he was fighting with enemies, even when he was completely at a disadvantage, he had never displayed the 4 laws of the 6 paths of reincarnation in front of others. Then, how did the human in front of him know about it? In the 6 paths of reincarnation, the heavenly Tao is the strongest and is ranked first, followed by the human Tao, Azura Tao, Animal Tao, Hungry Ghost Tao, and Hell Tao. The first doppelganger said calmly as he slowly released the power of laws he had comprehended. The power of laws I have comprehended is the human Tao of the 6 paths of reincarnation, which is ranked below the heavenly Tao. After the first doppelganger released the aura of the human Tao of the 6 paths of reincarnation, the giant spirit devouring ant fell to his knees uncontrollably. At the same time, he finally understood how the other party could easily take the 5 chaos spirit stones from him and how he knew about the 6 paths of reincarnation. I choose to submit. Although the 6 paths of reincarnation law was far inferior to the laws of time, fate, space, destruction, and karma, it was also unique due to its ability to reincarnate and be reborn. Now, Howard had successfully comprehended the human Tao of the laws of samsara, which was only inferior to the heaven Tao. This meant that not only would he be unable to comprehend the human Tao of the laws of samsara in the future, he would even be completely restrained by Yuhauran, unless he could comprehend the strongest heavenly Tao of the 6 paths of reincarnation law, then use the heavenly Tao to completely suppress the human Tao and steal the human Tao that his first clone had comprehended. However, how could the heavenly Tao that had been completely sealed by the heavenly Tao laws be so easily comprehended? For the sake of its own life and for the sake of its future, the giant spirit devouring ant chose to surrender, and also took the initiative to hand over the foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation that it had painstakingly built. It was a round disc that used 6 top connate spirit treasures as the reincarnation cornerstone and fused with countless natural treasures. The perfect foundation of the 6 paths of reincarnation is only missing the 6 paths of reincarnation law that can be reshaped and the crouching flower that can give it a conception. After receiving the round disc handed over by the giant spirit devouring ant, the first clone carefully observed it. After praising it with a satisfied smile, he stretched out his hand and continued to give orders. Hand over a trace of your divine soul. The black bear, winged dragon, an ancestral dragon that Yuhauran had signed had already occupied all the beast pet contract slots, causing him and his second clone to be unable to sign any more beast pet contracts. Therefore, the first clone could only use the means of controlling the divine soul to subdue the giant spirit devouring ant. After the giant spirit devouring ant obediently handed over a trace of its divine soul, the first clone looked down at the pool of milky white energy condensed from connate spirit chi, and a trace of hesitation flashed across its eyes. Master, the independent space that I opened up can perfectly store the connate spirit liquid condensed from connate spirit chi. The giant spirit devouring ant, who knew that the milky white energy condensed from connate spirit chi was precious, hurriedly expressed its loyalty. Put it all away. The first clone ordered with an indifferent expression. After the giant spirit devouring ant put away the pool of connate spirit liquid, the first clone directly cut through the void in front of him and then brought the giant spirit devouring ant into the void. However, the first clone did not directly return to the prince's mansion, but came from the Green Lake Mountains at the border of the southern region and the eastern region. The territory of the head of the 10 great ferocious beasts, Chi, feeling the murderous aura vaguely emanating from the calm lake bottom. The giant spirit devouring ant said with a trace of fear in its eyes, "You stay here for the time being." After instructing the giant spirit devouring ant, the first clone stepped towards the calm lake water. And just as the first clone stepped on the surface of the lake, the calm lake water immediately split open a passage that went straight to the bottom of the lake. Without the slightest hesitation, the first clone stepped into the passage and went straight to the nest of Chi in the training room of the prince's mansion. After spending almost half a day, Yuhauran finally completely refined the 2 purple thunderbolts gifted by the rules of Heaven Way. Compared to the golden thunderbolts formed by the gods' tribulation thunder punishment, the purple thunderbolts contained pure thunderbolt energy, which was not only thousands of times more concentrated and refined than the golden thunderbolts, but also contained a trace of the origin of the rules of Heaven Way. With the help of the pure thunderbolt energy and the trace of the origin of the rules of Heaven Way, his physical body grade, divine power, and soul power had not only successfully reached the peak of the 9th grade sovereign realm, but also the profound mystery of the law of life and death. At the same time, the profound mystery of the law of space, the profound mystery of the law of strength, and the profound mystery of the law of 4 seasons of spring, summer, autumn, and winter had all reached the peak of the profound mystery level. The only regret was that the cultivation of his state of mind did not improve much, barely reaching the early 6th grade sovereign realm. But even so, the strength that he could exert now had reached the peak of the 9th grade sovereign realm. If combined with the 4 fairy slaying swords, he could defeat and kill a first tribulation immortal realm expert. After taking out a few elixirs that were used to consolidate the breakthrough of the realm, Yuhauran simply consolidated his physical body grade, divine power, and soul power. Then, he quietly left the prince's mansion and finally came to the primeval forest where he obtained the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Destiny-stealing spiritual mouse. Chapter 2053. In the mountain range where the 100 Chi Gate was located in the primeval forest, it took him nearly 2 hours to search carefully without missing a single clue. However, the end result of the search was that they did not find anything. Yuhauran, who had stopped practicing, sighed slightly, but there was not much disappointment in his eyes. After all, how could he find a treasure that even the laws of the heavenly Tao couldn't pinpoint accurately? After leaving the primeval forest, Yuhauran quietly returned to the prince's mansion and then used his divine thought to inform Empty Rat, Thaling, and Su Hanwen. Come with me to the boundless void. When Empty Rat, Thaling, and Su Hanwen arrived at the wind pavilion in his courtyard, Yuhauran, who was overlooking the boundless void, ordered with a trace of fierce, killing intent in his eyes. When Yuhauran used the congenital divination method of Fushi's 8 diagrams to forcibly move the planet where Xingtian Supreme's head was sealed, Thaling knew that he would not let go of Xingtian Supreme, who repaid kindness with enmity. However, when he thought that Xingtian Supreme was, after all, a half-tribulation immortal expert trained by him, and also one of his few friends in the world, Thaling suddenly became soft-hearted and wanted to give Xingtian a chance to live. Yuhauran, can you give Xingtian a chance to turn over a new leaf? Thaling, what do you think? Yuhauran asked indifferently after withdrawing his gaze from the boundless void. Faced with Yuhauran's question, Thaling suddenly did not know what to say, or what to refute Xingtian Supreme. After all, the things that Supreme Xingtian had done after breaking free had been far too excessive. This made it impossible for him to defend him at all. Thaling, although Senior Xianyuan's strength is not bad, he is too upright. I'm afraid that he won't be able to find the hidden danger left by the device spirit of the Void Mirror. However, he did not know how to refute, nor did he have the determination to kill Xingtian Supreme. Thaling's reaction just now made Yuhauran very disappointed. In order to prevent Xingtian Supreme from taking advantage of Thaling's weakness and escaping from the last chance to kill him, Yuhauran decisively chose to give up the idea of going to the boundless void with Xingtian Supreme. So, you can stay in the prince's mansion for the next few days and help Senior Xingtian Supreme. Hearing Yuhauran's new arrangement, Thaling could not help but be stunned for a moment, and then looked at him with eyes full of disbelief. Yuhauran did not explain. He nodded to Su Hanwen directly, and then rushed to the distant boundless void with the void spirit mouse. Was I wrong? Looking at Yuhauran and Su Hanwen slowly disappearing into the void, Thaling stood alone in the courtyard and asked himself with a trace of doubt in his eyes. Little friend Yu, wasn't your decision a bit abrupt? Although Yuhauran, who had comprehended and mastered the mystery of the law of space, was very fast, Su Hanwen, whose cultivation had reached the early stage of the immortal realm, could also easily catch up with him. After careful consideration, Su Hanwen tried to use tactful words to complain for Thaling. Senior, I will officially start the immeasurable calamity in a month or 40 days. Facing Su Hanwen's tactful complaints for Thaling, Yuhauran, who had slowed down a little, explained helplessly. If we don't make the tower spirit realize its weakness as soon as possible by ignoring it and giving it the cold shoulder, I'm worried that it won't be able to withstand the cruelty, cunning, treachery, heartlessness, betrayal, and so on of the immeasurable calamity. In the end, it might harm itself. Little friend Yu, why are you in such a hurry to start the immeasurable calamity? Although Yuhauran's explanation made Su Hanwen understand why he ignored and gave Thaling the cold shoulder, he was still quite puzzled and confused about the time when he suddenly decided to start the immeasurable calamity. After all, the Tianxian continent hadn't really fallen into chaos yet, so the immeasurable calamity could be delayed for at least 2 to 3 years. During this time, Howard and his close friends could continue to improve their cultivation base and strength. He could also use his identity as the Son of Destiny to make friends with more terrifying experts in the Forbidden Lands. This would be more beneficial for him to protect himself in the immeasurable calamity. Sigh. After hearing Su Hanwen's question, Howard, who had stopped abruptly, couldn't help but sigh and say helplessly, "Senior, it's not that I want to start the immeasurable calamity in advance. It's because I can't resist it." After giving an answer that made Su Hanwen even more confused, Howard suddenly sped up and rushed into the endless void. In the endless void, in a dead star field. Boom! The headless Xingtian Supreme, who had overdrawn his divine power and soul power, combined with the power of law he controlled, directly shattered a planet the size of the central region. When he saw that his head wasn't sealed, he couldn't help but roar at the sky. "Damn brat, where the hell did you take the planet that sealed this sovereign's head? Xingtian Supreme, if you're willing to give me a part of your divine soul now, I'll immediately help you find the planet that sealed your head. I'll also provide you with a part of the precious chaotic spiritual energy so that you can break through to the terrifying second tribulation immortal realm as soon as possible." Just as Xingtian Supreme was yelling at Howard about where to put his sealed head, a familiar voice suddenly sounded in his ears. Without the slightest hint of panic or vigilance, the headless Supreme Xingtian turned around. Then, he looked at a gigantic azure dragon several million kilometers away, crawling on a planet that was 10 times the size of the central domain. Loyalty? Surrender? You, Blue Dragon, are not worthy of that. Although Xingtian Supreme didn't reject Blue Dragon Supreme's proposal, he used a more aggressive and humiliating way to show that he would never surrender. Blue Dragon Supreme didn't care about this at all. He chuckled lightly and then said as if he was talking to himself, but he didn't lower his voice at all. "Just 10 minutes ago, Howard brought Su Hanwen, a terrifying expert from the sea region who has reached the early stage of the third tribulation immortal realm, to the endless void. I don't know what he wants to do in the endless void. Could it be that he wants to take revenge on us, the 4 divine beasts supreme?" After hearing the potential threat from Blue Dragon Supreme, Xingtian Supreme's body trembled slightly. Then, he directly released his extremely terrifying divine thought, and soon saw Howard, empty spirit mouse, and Su Hanwen, who were about to leave the atmosphere of the Tianxian continent and enter the endless void. "Blue Dragon Supreme, other than the condition of handing over my divine soul, I, Xingtian Supreme, will agree to any request you make." Chapter 2054. In the starfield that was dead silent in the endless void. Not to mention that his cultivation base had dropped to the initial stage of half-tribulation immortal realm due to the severe injuries he had suffered. Even if he was in his peak condition during the Middle Ages, he would still be no match for Su Hanwen, who was at the initial stage of 3 tribulation immortal realm. Therefore, in order to find the planet where the head was sealed as soon as possible and to keep his hopes of breaking through to the immortal realm in the future, Xingtian Supreme could be said to have made the biggest concession in his life. However, it was a pity that in order to protect his own life, he had betrayed his benefactor, Howard, and the pagoda's spirit at the most crucial moment. This had already allowed the Azure Dragon Sovereign to see clearly what kind of person the sky-punishing sovereign was. Therefore, in order to avoid being betrayed by Xingtian Supreme at the critical moment in the future, he still insisted on the condition of handing over the godly soul. What a fast speed! Seeing that Xingtian Supreme was silent for a long time without replying, Blue Dragon Supreme was worried that Howard would arrive at the planet where the head was sealed one step ahead of him. Therefore, he vaguely threatened Xingtian Supreme. Howard and Su Hanwen have already entered the Sand River star field in the endless void. They will arrive at their destination in 7 or 8 minutes at most. Okay, I agree to your request. Blue Dragon Supreme's subtle threat finally forced Xingtian Supreme to submit to him. Then, he handed over the remaining godly soul in the headless body to Blue Dragon Supreme. After using a special secret method to seal the godly soul of Xingtian Supreme, Blue Dragon Supreme's eyes flashed with a hint of joy. He immediately took out a Grade Supreme formation flag from the independent space he had created. Then, he mobilized his peak 2 Tribulation Immortal Realm Godly Power and Soul Power into the formation flag. Just as the Azure Dragon Sovereign activated the Array flag in his hand, the White Tiger Sovereign, the Vermilion Bird Sovereign, and the Black Tortoise Sovereign, who were hiding in a star field roughly 60 million kilometers away from the deathly silent star field, hurriedly channeled all of their divine power and soul power into the Array flag. When the green, white, red, and gray energy pillars erupted from the 4 formation flags, all converged on a planet that was about the size of the southern region and exuded a rich vitality, the planet began to shake violently. As the planet shook violently, a 6 diagram that enveloped the entire planet quickly appeared. The moment the 6 diagrams appeared, Yu Haoran, who was less than 50 million kilometers away from the planet, could not help but change his expression. He abruptly stopped in his tracks, and his 10 fingers began to rapidly form seals. Then, he began to deduce what kind of unforeseen event had befallen the planet that sealed Xingtian Supreme's head. Blue Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, Black Tortoise, you 4 damn bastards. How dare you help Xingtian's head escape? A terrifying aura that was close to shaking the planet quickly surged from Yu Haoran's body as he roared furiously at the sky. Sooner or later, I will pull out your tendons, peel off your skin, drink your blood, and eat your flesh. Through Fushi's 8 diagrams innate divination technique, he quickly found out that the 4 terrifying forces that forcefully bombarded the 6 diagram had come to the most sinister of them all: Blue Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise. Back when he had helped Xingtian Supreme unseal the bronze coffin, the Blue Dragon had pursued him because of his identity as the Child of Destiny. Later on, when he had joined forces with Thaling to set up the Shifting Stars formation, the Blue Dragon had also created a projection to destroy and pursue him. Finally, when he was trying to break through the God's tribulation thunder of the martial God realm, the Blue Dragon had not given up on pursuing him. As the saying went, don't do things more than 3 times. If he counted the fact that they had helped Xingtian Supreme's head escape this time, the number of times they had offended each other had reached 4. This made Yu Haoran's hatred for them truly surpass that of Xingtian Supreme and the Master of Buddhism. They had become the enemies he wanted to kill the most now. Second brother, third sister, fourth brother, speed up the bombardment of the 6 diagram seal and help Xingtian Supreme's head escape as soon as possible. Sensing the monstrous killing intent contained in Yu Haoran's roar, the Blue Dragon's expression changed slightly. He immediately used Long Ling's method to inform the White Tiger, the Vermilion Bird, and the Black Tortoise to speed up the bombardment of the seal. Senior, I'll go and stop Xingtian Supreme's head from escaping first. Hurry over here as soon as possible. Sensing that the 6 diagram was about to shatter at any time, Yu Haoran hurriedly mobilized the profound mysteries of the law of space as he urged Su Hanwen with an anxious expression. Don't worry, little friend you. I'll definitely rush over to your side in 3 minutes at most, Su Hanwen promised with a solemn expression. Back then, when he used Fushi's 8 diagrams innate deduction technique to forcibly seal and move the planet where Xingtian Supreme's head was, Yu Haoran had already considered the various unforeseen events that might occur. Thus, he had set up as many as 9 spatial coordinates on the planet in advance. Therefore, after receiving Su Hanwen's guarantee, Yu Haoran immediately used the spatial coordinates to directly perform a long-distance teleportation of the law of space martial technique. 10 seconds. In less than 10 seconds, the long-distance teleportation of the law of space martial technique allowed Yu Haoran to directly cross a distance of nearly 50 million kilometers across several star fields and appear inside the sealed planet. Little Kong, when I was sealing this planet back then, I vaguely sensed that there seemed to be an amazing treasure hidden in the depths of the planet. Hurry up and find that treasure now. Sitting cross-legged on the core array point of the 6 diagrams diagram, he mobilized the power of the technique to increase the power of the seal. At the same time, he hurriedly instructed the Void Spirit Mouse to carry out the second purpose of entering the endless void. Got it. After hearing Yu Howren's instructions, the Void Spirit Mouse jumped off his shoulder and directly blended into the planet's underground. Oh no, that kid actually used a martial technique of the law of space to enter the sealed planet ahead of time. Blue Dragon Supreme, who suddenly felt the power of the planet seal increase, hurriedly used his divine sense to integrate into the array flag to check the changes on the planet. When he saw Yu Howren sitting cross-legged inside the planet, his expression changed involuntarily. Blue Dragon Supreme, what should I do? With Yu Howren's strength as a peak 9th level martial god, coupled with the 4 immortal slaying swords that were not inferior to innate treasures, it was completely possible for him to destroy the head and the sleeping soul. This caused the Sky Punisher to immediately panic. At the same time, he could not help but ask the Azure Dragon Sovereign for help. Xingtian Supreme, I will inform the White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise to overdraw part of their divine power and soul power to increase the power of the formation's attack. While we do our best to delay Yu Howren, you should hurry to that planet as soon as possible and try to awaken the sleeping soul ahead of time. In response to Xingtian Supreme's request for help, Blue Dragon Supreme pondered for a moment and ordered with a confident smile on his face again. Chapter 2055. In the endless void, in the dead silence of the starfield, I'm going to the planet where the head is sealed right now. After hearing Blue Dragon Supreme's plan to kill 2 birds with 1 stone, Xingtian Supreme, who was also very excited, immediately nodded and rushed to the planet where his head was sealed at a speed not inferior to that of short-distance teleportation. Although Blue Dragon Supreme's plan sounded perfect, both he and Xingtian Supreme had made a fatal mistake. Or rather, they had neglected a person who could determine the outcome of the whole plan. That person was Su Hanwen, who had reached the early stage of the immortal realm. Whether it was the distance to the planet where the head was sealed or the speed of Xingtian Supreme, Su Hanwen had an absolute advantage. Therefore, although Blue Dragon Supreme's plan seemed to be to save Xingtian Supreme, it was actually to send him to his death in advance. After the Void Spirit Mouse had passed the God Tribulation Thunder Punishment and raised his cultivation to the peak of the 9th level of the God Realm with the help of the reward, he began to carefully examine the potential after the bloodline was activated. In the end, to his great shock and surprise, the potential after the bloodline was activated turned out to be the rule of time. After several experiments, he found that he could barely control a trace of the rule of time with his cultivation base at the peak of the 9th level of the God Realm. Although the trace of the rule of time that he could barely control didn't have an obvious effect on his strength, it had an incredible effect on his speed and breaking the shackles. With the help of the rule of time, it took Void Spirit Mouse less than 5 seconds to reach the core of the underground of the entire planet. This is the energy crystal of the rule of time, space, and destruction. Void Spirit Mouse cried out in disbelief when he saw 2 mountain-like, transparent crystals and a mountain-like black crystal floating in the huge space of the underground core. Void Spirit Mouse, who was afraid that he was hallucinating, rushed to the front of the crystal of the rule of time and put his little paw on the transparent crystal. Then, the energy of the rule of time crazily poured into his divine soul. Not only could he step into the long river of history and return to the time 3 months ago, but he was also very sure that the 3 crystals in front of him were the crystals of the rule of time, space, and destruction. Void Spirit Mouse directly opened his mouth and swallowed the 3 crystals of the rule of time into a special storage space opened up in his body. When Void Spirit Mouse planned to return to the surface and tell Yu Howren about his harvest, he suddenly sensed a faint fluctuation of vitality in the underground magma. relying on its ability to ignore all formations and space restraints, as well as its means of escape that allowed it to step on the river of history. The empty spirit mouse simply rushed into the magma that was more than 1,000 degrees Celsius. After diving 1,000 meters into the magma, it discovered an enormous head that was as large as a mountain. Xingtian Supreme's head. Void Spirit Mouse knew that Yu Haoran's goal in entering the endless void this time was to kill Xingtian Supreme, who repaid kindness with enmity through the sealed head. Thus, even though the empty spirit mouse had never truly seen the sky punishing Exalt, it was able to guess that the head with its eyes closed and its soul in a deep slumber was the sky punishing Exalt's sealed head. Before he could fully control the power of the rule of time, Void Spirit Mouse's special constitution made him not very strong in combat. Void Spirit Mouse was far from being able to deal with a head that retained almost 2/3 of Xingtian Supreme's strength and had a cultivation base of the high stage of the immortal stage. Therefore, Void Spirit Mouse did not act rashly. Instead, he quietly withdrew from the magma and the underground, and then returned to Yu Haoran's side. At this time, Yu Haoran's six-sided 8 trigrams was evenly matched with the formation set up by the 4 divine beasts. Yu Haoran, is it convenient for you to talk now? Void Spirit Mouse was worried that the information he revealed would affect Yu Haoran's mood, which would interfere with the seal and the formation. So he needed to confirm his state in advance. Go ahead. With his second doppelganger pulling and breaking down the formation set up by the 4 divine beasts, Yu Haoran only needed to maintain the seal of the 6-sided 8 trigrams. Therefore, after hearing Void Spirit Mouse's question, he immediately diverted part of his energy to answer. I got 2 gains after going deep into the planet's underground. Void Spirit Mouse stretched out his short paw and began to introduce his gains in the planet's underground. The first one is that I found the sealed head of Xingtian Supreme in a deep sleep in the magma under the planet's underground. I know that. Yu Haoran nodded without any surprise. When he used Fushi's 8 trigrams to calculate the whereabouts of the sealed head of Xingtian Supreme, he had already determined the exact location and state of the head. Otherwise, he wouldn't have chosen to seal and move the entire planet directly. After all, the head retained nearly 2/3 of the original body's strength and had the strength of a 1 tribulation immortal realm expert. If he chose to overdraw his god soul at all costs, he could at least exert the strength of a 1 tribulation immortal realm expert. This was the main reason why he would rather resist the formation attack of the 4 divine beasts than take the risk of attacking the head. He knew that his strength was not enough to deal with the Xingtian Supreme's head. Seeing that Yu Haoran was clear about the exact location and state of Xingtian Supreme's head, Void Spirit Mouse didn't say anything more. He just stretched out his paw and said excitedly, "The second one is that I found 3 mountain-sized crystals containing the pure energy of the laws of time, space, and destruction in the core space of the planet's underground." When Void Spirit Mouse mentioned the origins of the 3 treasures hidden in the underground of the planet, Yu Haoran's body suddenly shook. The ecstasy surging in his heart almost affected the spell he was casting. Fortunately, the doppelganger in his knowledge reminded him in time, and with his strong mental state cultivation, he finally stabilized his emotions quickly. Then, he continued to cast the spell with all his strength, while trying to keep a calm expression. "Little Void, are you sure that there are really crystals of the laws of time, space, and destruction in the core space of the planet's underground?" "I'm very sure," Void Spirit Mouse explained after opening the special storage space in his body so that Yu Haoran could clearly feel the energy fluctuations of the 3 crystals in the special storage space. "Yu Haoran, I just absorbed a little bit of the law of time in the time crystal, and it already gave me the strength to step into the long river of history and return to any time node in the past 3 months. Little Void, with the help of the crystals of the law of time, how long will it take you to have the strength to return to 5 years ago?" Chapter 2056. in the endless void on the planet where the head was sealed. If you choose to cultivate in seclusion, the shortest time would be 3 days, the longest time would be 5 days. Considering the limitations of its own cultivation on the control of the power of rules, the Void Spirit Mouse finally gave a more conservative answer. Little Kong, if you take me to the long river of history and return to a certain point in time 5 years ago, how long would it take? Yu Haoran's hands that were casting spells suddenly stopped, and he asked with even more nervousness and anticipation. If I continue to cultivate in seclusion, the shortest time would be 1 month, the longest would be 1.5 months. Taking a supreme existence with the strength of a peak 9th grade sovereign, stepping into the long river of history, and reversing the flow of time was not only a requirement on the quantity of the power of rules, but also to continue to unlock the potential in the bloodline and enhance the quality of the power of rules of time. At the same time, reversing the flow of time contained a great risk. If there was a slight mistake, it was very likely that they would be lost in the long river of time, unable to return to the real world. Therefore, after careful consideration, the Void Spirit Mouse gave the most reliable time. Little Kong, after returning to the prince's mansion in the Tianxin continent, you should focus on cultivating in seclusion to absorb the power of rules in the time crystal, and strive to have the strength of 5 years ago as soon as possible. 1.5 months. If he used the power of the law of cause and effect to weaken the influence of the Destiny Stone Tablet and the Life Calamity Spirit Mouse on the fate of all living things, he could delay the start of the immeasurable calamity for another 10 days or so. In this way, he could use the Void Spirit Mouse to return to a certain point in time 5 years ago before the immeasurable calamity officially started and untie the knot in his heart that he could not let go of. As long as the last knot in his heart could be untied, then he could directly break through to the supreme realm without any scruples. At that time, he could use the strength of a peak sovereign to fight the strongest of the ancient races, the peak 9th grade sovereign and half-tribulation immortal experts in the endless void, the terrifying experts in the forbidden area of the Tianxin continent, the terrifying experts in the boundless ocean, and the heavenly ways rules in the final battle. I got it. In his previous life, the empty spirit mouse knew the reason why Yu Haoran was so anxious to return to 5 years ago. He also knew what the incident 5 years ago meant to him. So the void spirit mouse nodded solemnly. Main body, this is bad. Hurry up and leave this place. Yu Haoran's clone was doing his best to neutralize and weaken the power of the formation's attacks, and his expression changed drastically when he suddenly sensed that the power of the formation's attacks had increased by close to 10 times. Go! Then Yu Haoran, who felt the power of the attack formation increase, immediately used the space law martial technique of teleportation to leave the formation point of the 6-sided 8 trigrams diagram with the void spirit mouse and instantly appeared on the other side of the planet. Boom! Accompanied by continuous rumbling sounds, the hexahedral 8 trigrams diagram that was struck by the power of the formation exploded. The terrifying power that was formed in an instant destroyed nearly 1/3 of the planet. At the same time, the deafening roar and the fluctuation of the destructive power of the array that could destroy everything also caused the head of Xingtian Supreme that was sealed in the magma below the planet to gradually awaken from its slumber. Boom! After using the power of the formation to break the seal of the hexahedral 8 trigrams diagram, the attack of the formation controlled by the 4 divine beasts was not over. It still carried a terrifying power and blasted toward the planet. In the Middle Ages, whether it was the plan to besiege Xingtian Supreme or the subsequent seal on his head, it was the 4 divine beasts that worked together to guide and perform the formation. Therefore, the attack of the formation just now was not intended to destroy the head of Xingtian Supreme, but to remove the seal on the head so that the awakening divine soul could control the head and merge it with the Xingtian Supreme that was rushing over. As the second clone, who was about to break through to the supremacy realm, he soon discovered the purpose of the 4 divine beasts from the power of the formation attack. After hearing the second clone's reminder, Yu Haoran quickly mobilized all his strength without hesitation. Together with the immortal killing sword that instantly appeared in his hand, he directly performed the peak supreme swordsmanship that Skirif Supreme had created based on the 4 immortal killing swords. Immortal killing sword. Under the control of Yu Haoran's divine thoughts, the terrifying sword Qi condensed by the immortal killing swordsmanship followed closely behind the power of the formation. Then, the moment the formation released the seal on the head, it directly blasted on the newly awakened head that had not fully adapted to the power of the divine soul. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening roar, the mountain-like head was almost split open by the immortal killing sword Qi. At the same time, the immortal killing sword Qi contained the power to devour the body and divine soul, causing the newly awakened divine soul to be severely injured in an instant. At the moment when the head and divine soul were severely injured by the immortal killing sword Qi, the headless Xingtian Supreme, who was desperately rushing over, trembled violently. At the same time, the aura that had been barely maintained at the early stage of the half-tribulation immortal realm fell directly to the early stage of the 9th grade supremacy realm. Yu Haoran, I, Xingtian Supreme, will kill you. Supreme Xingtian knew who the culprit behind the severe injuries to his head and soul was. This made him so furious that he couldn't help but roar at the sky. Then, he recklessly charged toward the planet where the head was. At the same time, Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise, who had received orders from Supreme Blue Dragon, also rushed to the planet where Xingtian Supreme's head was located. While trying their best to save the severely injured head, they also tried their best to kill Yu Haoran. The early stage of the One Tribulation Immortal Realm. When he saw that Xingtian Supreme's head, which had been fatally attacked by the immortal killing sword Qi, had lost nearly half of its strength and was only at the early stage of the One Tribulation Immortal Realm, Yu Haoran's heart was filled with killing intent. However, when he sensed that Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise, who were very close to the planet, were about to come to his rescue, he couldn't help but feel a little worried. After all, there was an irreconcilable hatred between him and the 4 supreme divine beasts. Moreover, with his current cultivation and strength, even if he cooperated with the immortal killing sword, he was still no match for any of Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, or Supreme Black Tortoise. Little friend Yu, if you can hold on for 10 seconds, I'll be able to get to your side. Just when Yu Haoran was considering whether he should continue to take the risk to destroy Xingtian Supreme's head or try his best to leave the planet to avoid encountering Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise, he suddenly heard Su Hanwen's reminder. Chapter 2057. In the boundless void on the planet where the head was sealed. 10 seconds. With his strength at the peak of 9th grade sovereign realm and the immortal slaying sword in his hand, even if Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise worked together, he would still be able to hold on for 20 seconds. If he continued to use the space law's profound martial technique to dodge, he would be able to hold on for 30 seconds. Therefore, the moment he received Su Hanwen's reminder, Yu Haoran immediately made the decision to stay on the planet. Immortal slaying. Taking advantage of the fact that there were less than 3 seconds before Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise arrived on the planet, Yu Haoran immediately mobilized all of his strength and continued to attack Xingtian's head and divine soul with the immortal slaying sword. After suffering 2 consecutive heavy injuries, the strength of Xingtian's head and divine soul dropped to the initial stage of half-tribulation immortal realm. In order to hold on until Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise arrived, and in order to successfully merge with the headless body, Xingtian's head directly overdrew 1/3 of its soul power in exchange for peak One Tribulation immortal realm strength. Then, it charged toward Yu Haoran with murderous intent. Considering that Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise were also at the peak of one tribulation immortal realm, Xingtian decided to attack Xingtian. In order to avoid being besieged, Yu Haoran directly used the space law martial technique to teleport. Then, with the help of another space coordinate, he appeared on the other side of the planet in an instant. At this moment, Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise arrived at the place where he was standing a moment ago in a triangular formation. Although Supreme White Tiger and the others felt that it was a pity that Yu Haoran was able to escape from their encirclement, their most important task was to ensure Xingtian Supreme's safety. Therefore, Supreme White Tiger quickly put away his regret and ordered Xingtian's head and divine soul. Hurry to the southwest of the star field and merge with the headless body as soon as possible. Got it. After nodding in response, the Xingtian head glanced at Yu Haoran, who was standing on the other side of the planet, and a strong murderous intent appeared in its eyes as it pleaded. If it's possible, I hope that you can capture that you brat alive. Then, I'll let him have a taste of my Xingtian Supreme's torture methods. Try your best. The martial skill created from the profound mysteries of the law of space allowed Yu Haoran to possess unimaginable speed. Unless he used a formation to confine a large area of space, he would not be able to use the profound mysteries of the law of space smoothly. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to kill him by surrounding him, let alone capture him alive. Therefore, in the face of Xingtian's request, the White Tiger was not very confident in agreeing. Understanding Supreme White Tiger's lack of confidence, Xingtian's head did not say anything. It directly soared into the sky, intending to join the headless body as soon as possible. However, at this moment, an aquamarine willow leaf directly hit the glabella of Xingtian's head at a speed that transcended time and space. Xingtian's head, which was hit by the willow leaf, immediately let out a miserable howl of pain. His strength, which had just reached the half-immortal realm, dropped to the early 9th level of the martial god realm. Oh no! Hurry up and take Xingtian Supreme's head away from here. Supreme White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise, who had planned to join forces to hunt down Yu Haoran, immediately looked up when they heard the miserable howl of Xingtian's head. When they saw the willow leaf between the head's eyebrows, they hurriedly used their divine senses to check it. Soon, they found Su Hanwan, who was speeding toward them from 3 million kilometers away. Supreme White Tiger's expression changed, and he immediately ordered Supreme Vermilion Bird and Supreme Black Tortoise. Immortal Slaying Sword. However, when Supreme White Tiger was about 100 meters away from Xingtian's head, a sharp sword Qi, whose power was infinitely close to that of a terrifying expert, directly chopped off Xingtian's head. According to the speed of the sword Qi, if he continued to approach Xingtian's head, he would bear the brunt of the sword Qi's attack. However, if he didn't approach Xingtian's head, his head and divine soul would be destroyed without a doubt, since his strength had dropped to the peak of the 9th level of the martial god realm. Xingtian Supreme was an important chess piece in Supreme Blue Dragon's plan to snatch the opportunity to reach the immortal realm. Therefore, Supreme White Tiger didn't hesitate too much. As he continued to approach Xingtian's head, he directly activated his Supreme Grade Defensive Artifact. Boom! Accompanied by a deafening boom, the Supreme Rank Defensive Artifact was directly shattered by the swift and fierce sword Qi. The remaining power of the sword Qi heavily smashed onto the White Tiger Sovereign's body. Puff! 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 Supreme White Tiger spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood and took 18 steps back. His aura dropped to the initial stage of the half-tribulation immortal realm. Supreme White Tiger ranked 2nd among the 4 supreme divine beasts. His true strength was infinitely close to the 2nd tribulation immortal realm. However, in order to prevent Xingtian Supreme from escaping, the headless Xingtian Supreme used a rule martial skill to destroy one of his projections. As a result, Supreme White Tiger's strength dropped to the high stage of the 1st tribulation immortal realm. Then, before he could recover from his injuries, In order to prevent Yuhauran from passing the god's tribulation, he overdrew his blood essence and soul power and sent his projection to the Tianxian continent. However, his limbs were cut off by the rules of heaven, which caused his strength to drop to the middle stage of the first tribulation immortal realm. Therefore, it wasn't surprising that he was severely injured and spat out blood when Yuhauran overdrew 1/3 of his divine power and soul power to display the sword chi of the first tribulation immortal realm. While Supreme White Tiger was resisting Yuhauran's sneak attack, Xing Tian Supreme, who had successfully forced the willow leaf out of his glabella, hesitated. However, when he sensed the aura of Su Hanwen, who was about to descend on the planet, the hesitation in his eyes was replaced by determination. He took the risk of tearing the void of the star field and rushed into the void crack without hesitation. However, no one noticed that when Xing Tian's head was hit by the willow leaf, a figure that came out of Yuhauran's body disappeared from the planet with the immortal culling sword and the void spirit mouse. Damn coward! Supreme Vermilion Bird, whose face was as cold as frost, couldn't help but curse when he saw Xing Tian's head running away at the last minute. Originally, if Xing Tian's head hadn't run away at the last minute, it would have continued to overdraw its soul power in exchange for the strength of the first tribulation immortal realm. Then, it would have cooperated with them to arrange the formation of the 4 divine beasts to deal with Su Hanwen. It would have been enough to delay them until Supreme Blue Dragon's rescue. Chapter 2058. In the boundless void, on the planet where the head was sealed. Let's go back to the divine beast star field. Since they had lost the means to deal with Su Hanwen, staying here would undoubtedly lead to their deaths. Therefore, after the white tiger sovereign glanced at Yuhauran with eyes filled with intense unwillingness, he also decided to leave without any hesitation. Zhu Immortal. However, just as White Tiger, Supreme Vermilion Bird, and Supreme Black Tortoise were about to rush out of the planet's atmosphere, Yuhauran's voice rang in their ears. Along with Yuhauran's voice, the fierce sword chi, whose power had been weakened to the middle stage of the immortal realm, slashed toward the seriously injured White Tiger. Annihilation. The Vermilion Bird Sovereign, who had directly spat out the power of the laws of fire, asked Yuhauran with a frosty expression after easily dispersing the sharp sword aura. What are you trying to do? Pointing the tip of the Zhu immortal sword at Supreme Vermilion Bird, the corners of Yuhauran's mouth curled up slightly as he taunted. You think you can come and go as you please? Don't you think you're taking me, Yuhauran, seriously? Who do you think you are? Why do you have to decide whether we go or stay? Supreme Vermilion Bird, who was also smiling, didn't hide the contempt and humiliation in her eyes. In the face of Supreme Vermilion Bird's humiliation, Yuhauran suddenly threw his head back and laughed. After laughing for a full 3 seconds, Yuhauran suddenly stopped laughing and retorted with a fierce look on his face. Just as recorded in the historical records, you're a bunch of ignorant beasts who only know how to act according to your own preferences. How pitiful and lamentable. You're courting death. Ever since human beings began to rule the world in the Middle Ages, divine beasts, demon beasts, and exotic beasts had less and less space to live. At the same time, the demonization of non-human creatures in historical records and folklore not only completely tarnished the illustrious reputation they had created in ancient times, but also snatched away the providence of heaven and earth that originally belonged to them. Therefore, the defamation of their reputation was a pain that could never be removed from their hearts. It was also a reverse scale that could not be touched easily. As for Yuhauran's action of forcefully revealing the reverse scales, the furious Paragon Vermilion Bird and Paragon Black Tortoise rushed towards Yuhauran. Your opponent is me. However, at this moment, a green figure holding a willow branch instantly appeared before the Vermilion Bird Supremacy and the Black Tortoise Supremacy. At the same time, Yuhauran instantly appeared in front of the White Tiger Sovereign with his spatial law martial skill. Oh no, we've been tricked. The Black Tortoise Supremacy's expression changed when he saw Yu Haoran rapidly changing his position. He immediately turned around, intending to help the White Tiger. However, a willow branch quickly wrapped around his limbs. Not only did it forcefully pull him back, but it also directly trapped him. Annihilation. Only by teaming up with the Black Tortoise Supremacy, who was in peak condition, would they have a chance of escaping from Su Hanwen. As for the White Tiger, who was facing Yu Haoran alone, they could only pray for his own good fortune. Therefore, the Vermilion Bird Supremacy did not turn around to save the White Tiger. Instead, he directly used the power of the fire-based laws to burn the willow branch that was trapping the Black Tortoise Supremacy. However, it was a pity that the willow branch in Su Hanwen's hand was not an ordinary item. It was a green willow that had been nurtured on an island with a large amount of chaotic essence qi in the ancient sea region. It was not inferior to a spiritual root. However, after absorbing all the chaotic essence qi on the island, the green willow branch was unable to leave the island due to the lack of nourishment from the chaotic essence qi. In the end, it had withered and died, leaving behind the essence of the original willow branch. After countless years of tempering, the willow branch's toughness was not inferior to that of a supreme grade defensive weapon. At the same time, with the support of his strength as an early-stage immortal grade 3 tribulation, its toughness and defensive power were not inferior to that of 7 innate cardinal treasures. Therefore, the willow branch was not damaged in the slightest by the power of the fire-based laws. On the contrary, the Black Tortoise Supremacy, who was bound by the willow branch, was unable to withstand the shrinking power of the willow branch, and his body began to shrink continuously. Immortal Slaying Sword. Yu Haoran, who had used the Space Law Martial technique to teleport, instantly appeared in front of White Tiger. Without any superfluous words, he directly performed the Immortal Slaying Sword technique in an attempt to kill White Tiger completely before Blue Dragon Supreme arrived. White Tiger's Sky-Shattering Sword. Facing the fierce sword chi whose power had reached the peak of the immortal grade 1 tribulation, White Tiger Supreme did not dare to be careless. He directly burned his divine power and soul power in exchange for the strength of the peak of the immortal grade 1 tribulation. Then, he immediately performed the all-conquering rule of strength martial technique. As White Tiger Supreme slapped out a huge palm that was as huge as a galaxy, it directly shattered the fierce sword chi. Then, it continued to slam towards Yu Haoran. Yu Haoran, who had disappeared from where he was, lost his target, and the huge palm that was attacking Xingtian Supreme's head directly shattered a third of the planet. Seeing Yu Haoran escape using the Space Law Martial technique, White Tiger Supreme sighed gloomily. He turned his head to look at Black Tortoise Supremacy, who was completely trapped, and Vermilion Bird Supremacy, who was completely at a disadvantage. However, he had no intention of helping them at all. This was because Vermilion Bird Supremacy's selfish act of abandoning him had completely broken White Tiger's heart. At the same time, the peak strength that he had obtained by burning his divine power and soul power could only last for 10 seconds at most. Therefore, in order to escape from Yu Haoran, he could only pray that Vermilion Bird Supremacy and Black Tortoise Supremacy would be able to fend for themselves. After retracting his gaze, White Tiger Supreme stretched out his huge claws and took the risk of tearing apart the void of the star field. He planned to use the same method as Xingtian's head to escape. Immortal Slaying. However, just as White Tiger Supreme's huge head entered the torn void of the star field, Yu Haoran's sneak attack came from behind him. The fierce sword chi that Yu Haoran had condensed from the Immortal Slaying Sword was as powerful as the peak of the first tribulation immortal stage. It could only be broken by the use of law power. At the same time, the predicament of losing the protection of supreme grade defensive artifact made it impossible for him to use his physical body to block the fierce sword chi. Helpless, White Tiger Supreme could only quickly retreat from the tear in the void of the star field and continue using the White Tiger's heaven-shattering law martial technique. White Tiger's heaven-shattering. After the huge palm condensed from the law of power martial technique shattered the fierce sword chi, Yu Haoran's sneak attack came from behind the White Tiger Supreme's huge head just as it entered the tear in the void of the star field. Immortal slaying. Left with no other choice, White Tiger Supreme retreated from the tear in the void of the star field a second time and continued to use his law of power martial technique to shatter the fierce sword chi. Only then did he realize the true purpose of Yu Haoran's continuous sneak attacks. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.